The first item is approval of the agenda. If no one else has any other changes, I do have one that I would like to suggest. So, but I'll leave the floor open in case anybody else wants to make changes to the agenda. No one has anything? Okay. I would like to pull. I'm trying to locate it.
Well, I'd like to discuss two additional instructions before we just.
Yeah, I'd like to just pull all of consent agenda 3B4 out and just talk about them.
I would agree with that second.
Yeah, so moved. I don't know if we need a motion to do that,
Yeah, motion
to amend the agenda. I think we do.
I'll second. Oh, you did? Okay.
Couldn't hear you. You don't have a mic.
No.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sitting right next to him.
Yeah, but it's not working. You're gonna have to turn up the internal volume. I don't think we have
Motion
any-
by myself, a second by Mike Arvid to amend the agenda. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries. All right.
Those we move to 6.
Six, like,
After the rest of the agenda.
got it at the very end. Okay, that's fine. Okay, now we're back to approval of the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Arvid and a second by Mike to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed, say no. Carries. Okay, consent agenda as amended. There's a bunch of stuff in there. We got a couple of meetings, May 14th and 28th. The special, I believe, was a budget workshop, CIP workshop? No? Oh, that was the operator's or the picnic license for the Braves. That's right. Yep. And then I think we also did an appointment there too, plan commission appointment. Okay. Bunch of licenses and permits, all renewals, right? These are all just,
Most of them, there's a couple new operators down there at the bottom. They all checked.
okay. Yeah, everything,
Have all their paperwork.
everything looked like it checked out.
Yep.
Okay. And then board, committee, commission, and agency reports for airport, ambulance, historic preservation commission, library board, water, sewer, and vouchers payable. And then a budget summary. Anything of note on the
There's a
budget
special
summary?
event in there too, a special event permit. For Osceola Farmers Market for their signs.
Ah,
That's in there too.
okay.
It's
Any,
just the placement of their signs around town.
got it. Anything of note with that at all?
Nope, there wasn't
Okay.
in there.
I noticed most of these special event permits didn't seem like they followed the format. Like there's a request, like there's a requirement for like signage, pictures and dimensions and stuff. Like the
This
farmers,
is a new one. They were told they had to get it to place these little signs.
a little, but they could be really large too, because it didn't say one way or the other in there.
I didn't look at it.
For future. I'm guessing they're not gonna show up with billboards, but
Pictures.
it might pay to
Yeah,
clean that
pictures
up.
are helpful. Yeah. That's good. It's a good point.
so is this like, is there some, that you got kind of an example of, or is there something that's been spotted already, or what?
No, well, later on, there's some that suggest something and we know what it is, but when it comes to the farmers, they just say they're size, but you don't know what size they are. And the permit application suggests that you should show and
A
describe it.
representation.
For all we know, they're trailer signs.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
If it's something new, I don't know that
They've done this. This is the first time they've actually gotten their permit for it.
And they're just lawn
So
signs.
It's not new. You've seen these.
Yeah,
signs.
they're lawn signs that
Yeah,
are placed on the
that's-
curbs.
yeah.
Is it still possible to ask for a picture retroactively anyway?
Probably ask them for a picture. I don't think that they're opposed to submitting it.
I mean, it's just a simple request, you know, hey,
It's
shoot
really
us a
more
picture of what you got so that we know.
Yeah,
if we're gonna go back and ask people for other things and hold everybody to a standard, it goes across the board.
Right. Yeah, I get where he's coming from because we're going to talk about it later, so. Okay, that discussion notwithstanding, anybody else have anything to to discuss regarding the consent agenda as amended before we entertain a motion?
I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Motion by Neil, second by Marcia to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Carries. Okay, moving on. Item number 4, public input and ideas, limit 5 minutes per speaker. Anybody dying to speak? Certainly there should be somebody out there who wants to address the board.
I wonder.
All right, seeing that there's no one, we'll move on. Item 5, reports. We'll move to staff reports. Police,
I will speak.
AJ will speak. Great.
How's everyone doing tonight?
Good.
Good. Well, we got summer, so we're seeing an uptick in call volume this time of year. But aside from that, May, we generated 365 calls for service and compiled 107 incident and traffic crash reports. We made 3 arrests and placed 1 person on an emergency hold and made 3 criminal referrals. Osceola PD initiated 44 traffic stops and issued 40 municipal citations. St. Croix Falls, with their agreement with us, generated 21 calls for service within the village and made 1 emergency detention placement. They also transported another patient to Winnebago, I believe, under emergency detention, which freed us up for a regular shift of the officer coming back the next day instead of having to have a shift disrupted. Other than that, like I said, we had a big uptick in call volume, notably with juvenile mental health calls. One of the incidents, or one of our officers was assaulted. We ended up making a referral for that, for juvenile intake. Otherwise, we seized 9.2 grams of suspected methamphetamine following a traffic stop. And we participated in the vehicle contacts training, which was hosted by St. Croix Falls PD. And then our administrative assistant has been plowing through the background checks for all the different licenses and whatnot. It seems like every day she's working on it, and I've not really seen her take a break with that. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Yeah, there were a lot of them this morning.
Yep. Otherwise, the only other call that was of note was we're investigating a felony level theft from a vehicle that happened within the village. So that's still an open case, but just want to remind everyone, we live in Osceola, which is an awesome town, but keep your doors locked, keep your cars locked, especially the valuables inside. So that's all I got.
How do you feel the pressure's been with regard to the amount of calls that you have versus the patrol schedule that you have? And are you full each evening, or are you finding time to actually move around and patrol the village?
Me personally,
Just the staff in general.
staff in general, yeah, we have been trying to maintain a balance where we're dedicating some time to investigating what we can when we can, and if we get a call, obviously we break from that and handle the call. Otherwise, any downtime, we're usually out proactively patrolling the village. So call volume has been strong, but nothing that we haven't been able to handle so far. So.
Are you able to make it back to the hospital site on a regular basis, the old hospital site?
Yeah, during routine patrols, sure. We usually pop back there, but again, we're talking one area in a 12-hour shift, and there's going to be a lot of open windows for people to do stuff.
Yeah.
Luckily, we got a lot of people in the area that like to call us when they see people out there. So I think that's the biggest factor, is just if you see something, say something, and then we can hopefully get there in time and intervene. So
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I think we've been contacted just about concerns, and see something, say something, and hopefully with the increased level of staff that is provided by combining departments, we'll be able to get somebody over there and make sure that people are abiding by no trespassing signs. So
I saw an interesting article recently, and I can't even remember where it was. I'm guessing you've heard about it too, but people voluntarily, the local officers, police department, whatever it was, voluntarily asked people to let them know if you had cameras on site. your Ring doorbells, your different Arlo cameras, whatever, and just said, hey, if you want to let us know you've got one, and that just became an extra resource. I actually thought it was kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, there's a couple different programs out there. I believe when we were looking at using evidence.com or possibly with our current body camera network, but you can, or no, it's actually the Flock system. The Flock system has a kind of, I'll say, an application where you can get permission from private businesses and households to pull streams from their camera footage as almost like a increased network of cameras. We haven't really looked into that, but if there's ever an incident, we're pretty good about canvassing.
This wasn't so much like, well, we want to have access to yours. It's just let us know you have one in case we have something. Maybe we'll come back and talk to you later.
Sure.
And just say, hey, we know there's a camera at this location. Maybe we can come talk to them later or something.
Yeah.
I thought it was a neat idea.
Like you were saying, that's kind of standard practice now, though. If there's a major incident,
Just knock on
we
doors.
just knock on doors with
No.
vantage points and say, hey, you know, we notice you might have this, you
Sure.
have this. And you know, at least when I was there, a couple of big investigations we did have, people were more happy to say, here it is.
Yeah.
Right,
It was
yeah.
it's actually helpful because it helps you establish a timeline,
Mhm.
you know, so yeah, that was a good deal.
There's a network, it's called Neighbors. You've seen that?
I can't remember where I
I
read
have
this.
it, I have it with my Ring system, and it points out everybody in your area that's on that system. And you can exchange live information on those. And, you know, like the other day, we tracked a bear just moving on through, and it was interesting because, yeah, just that awareness, and it could be for a lost kid or.
Yeah, I had an alert come through
Yeah,
for
right.
an
So,
Amber Alert.
Yeah, and it works out pretty good.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
another option.
Even a lot of the applications out there are able to identify if it's a person or a deer or a
Yeah,
car.
it works good.
So,
Does the police department here have full access to all of the cameras inside and outside of the building as far as
Yeah.
the security system?
Yep.
And you have the ability to program stations and directions and
we
parking
do-
spots?
We pretty much, like Ron was saying, it's really great for establishing a timeline. I think I've used the one that faces that intersection on Third Avenue and Chieftain Street, like a bunch of times for like traffic collisions that have happened there, because it just catches a really good overview of what happened, who blew the stop sign, that sort of a thing.
Mhm.
Otherwise, with other cases, if we're looking for a person at a certain time, we can see a person, gives us a little bit more narrow of a timetable. Not so much like for identification because we're really far up, but yeah, very helpful.
The last flock finally get installed?
So it's due to be installed either this week or next week. I have not heard back. They're going to let me know a couple days before they show up. Otherwise, I've been in communication with the village crew about coordinating the electric company to come out and get that installed, but it's supposed to be the next couple weeks.
So it's a hot one, not a solar one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I only ask because I think we have a camera, I think, on the outside corner of this building that faces that way,
Mhm.
right? And it might be important to look at the schedule for that and have it pointed at a construction site in Oki Park for a couple months while we
Sure.
build a skate park, so.
Yeah.
Maybe Marcia, do they set one up maybe perhaps at the site? that's
They will.
live?
They will. There will be community involvement to assist with that, so,
Set of cameras?
on site, yes,
So
yes.
I think it's a good idea.
There will be a Nest camera on site as well.
Okay.
And you can watch it in the progress.
The question was, is that standard practice for this company? And the answer is no. So if that is something that is required by the village, then
It's not, but I want it to be there because I want you guys to have peace of mind, so.
Can you give me a sense? The call information is helpful, and I read that number and thought, wow, that's a lot of calls. Can you help me? Like, are you in a staffing situation where there are cases you would like to investigate, but you are unable to do so because of call volume or because of staffing challenges, or are you finding that you're able to get through that investigative work? Because it seems to me like that's an important component of your jobs, and I'm wondering if it's kind of being washed out by the call volume.
Sure. No, it's all about prioritization. So when we have downtime, if we're working on, say, a retail theft or something like that, and we have a lead on a suspect, we'll work that case to completion, whether that be identifying the person or not. But like I said, if we get a call for domestic in progress, we're obviously gonna break from that.
Yeah.
And, sometimes we just need a mental break from, staring at a computer screen and, typing up warrants and stuff like that to where we're gonna be going out and patrolling. We try to all be well-balanced, well-rounded, for the community by, trying to take a little bit of everything and doing what we can when we can, So if we have a lull, then, let's dig into some paperwork and get some warrants written up, or, if it's busy, then we just kind of have to table this investigation until we get some more free time. But
Okay. I'm curious, I think as the, merger discussions continue, it seems to me that, those, when I lived in Minneapolis, someone stole the throttle off my motorcycle, petty.
Sure.
Right? I think they were trying to steal the bike itself and they were too stupid to realize that's a separate thing, And I ultimately, I didn't report it to the police because they weren't going to mess with it. And I'm always just curious where those lines fall. And I think those lines fall a lot of the time, I would have to imagine, around staffing and availability to investigate. The more time you have, the more capacity you have, the more in depth you are able to become, I would have to imagine.
yes, absolutely. I mean, would we benefit from having a full-time investigator? I think that we could keep that person busy.
Mhm.
But is our call volume so heavy that we can't do any investigations whatsoever, except for serious crimes? No.
It's tricky though, like, these calls can be deceiving too, because it's, you get how many calls there are in a month. But the first 2 weeks there could have been no calls. And the last 2 weeks, all the calls came in at one time. So it's not necessarily how many calls,
Evenly spaced.
it's when they come in. If they're
Sure.
evenly spaced, that's ideal because there's a constant flow.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, so.
Right. So if we ever get like a 2-week lull, then we're out in the community, we're enforcing traffic code more so than days that, we're going from one thing to the next, We're try to be as dynamic as we can.
No, that makes sense.
I'm sorry about your throttle.
No. I watch it, I'm like,
Must have fixed it because you've been riding
it's
it.
fixed. Oh, it's fixed. It's been fixed for a long time.
How far away are we from finishing the merger process?
We have another meeting tomorrow, and we're anticipating that the paperwork or the legal agreement should be wrapping up soon, and we'll be able to share that with the full board.
Yeah, I'll speak more on that. We should have a resolution of the intent to combine. We should have that figured out by tomorrow's meeting. We will need a special meeting this month to get that resolution passed. The reason being,
That's where I was going.
is because it takes months to get your police identification number. So we want to make sure that we get this resolution passed so we can start getting all the information that we need to have a combined department. Otherwise, we'd be kind of doing this talk for no reason whatsoever. So the resolution would have to be passed. We're hoping to get it passed either next week or the week after. And then we'll carry on from there. The contract is work in progress. We have loose terms. We still have some tightening up to do. Amounts, administration fees, service. The big challenge still is we'd have to enter into a new contract negotiation with the police union. So that's going to be one of the more time consuming things. Luckily, the wages are very similar, so it shouldn't be too hard of a negotiation.
I'm definitely late to the party on this conversation. You don't have to get into great detail, but I'm curious, did we ever look at going to the county? Was there a reason why?
The what now?
Having the county, partnering up with them versus St. Croix?
Well, they're always their last resort
Right,
after
right.
local.
Maybe I'm drawing a terrible comparison, but Centuria is now using Polk County, right?
No, they have
No,
a
They
combined
combined with
department.
Folsom
Also
Lake.
like
Folsom
that.
Lake.
No, the problem is when you start contracting with the county, you lose municipal control of municipal tickets.
Yeah, you can't write your own tickets then.
You're no longer telling the officers what to do. They're telling you what they're going to enforce.
Gotcha.
So you lose a lot of the control. And then the estimations were not going to be the cost savings that you anticipate. So there's kind of a twofold aspect there that you're looking at. And it doesn't really change the response times either because you're never guaranteed, even though you provided 24-hour coverage, you're never guaranteed the squad car will be in the municipality.
That's good. Again, late to the party and somebody asked me the question. I was looking for just maybe a brief.
This has been something that I've been looking at for the last year overall, exploring all options. And this is to us the best action to go down.
Well, it wouldn't be another month if we couldn't have another special meeting
It wouldn't
sometime,
be.
right?
Will the special meeting be primarily for the resolution with the intent to merge, and then there'll be subsequent meetings to talk about contracts?
The contract is not ready for board approval yet. The resolution is just simply acknowledging that we're ready to go for this merger. Because we need to give the authority to go get the EIN number for tax purposes and the ORI for the law enforcement through the federal government. And those takes 4 to 6 months, and we're looking to get this done sooner than later. And since both communities are on board with this, we want to make sure that we can expedite this as fast as possible.
Yeah, that makes
Because
sense.
we can still work towards the contract while we're working on the other items.
So much police talk.
I like it. Any other questions at all?
No, it's a great report. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next up, Public Works.
Good evening, everyone.
Todd?
Hello.
So we had 2 full-time staff members for the month of May, due to vacations and some other time off. Very busy though. Successful to say the least in the amount of rain that we had, and given all of the public trees that we have, we had 0 flooding and no public trees down. So we had no call-outs after hours. We do have an erosion issue at 901 Cascade that we are continuing to battle. We've installed about 50 sandbags at this time and trying to control one of our major storm trunk lines from eroding a resident's land. So we're working with the engineer. We have a temporary fix in place at this time, and we'll continue to look forward to getting a permit with the DNR and getting potential contracted services to stop the erosion. Outside of that, we treat all downtown areas and village spaces to combat weeds. This includes storm retention areas, sidewalks, and parking lots. Asphalt was back in stock in the month of May, so of course right away we put on another 12,000 pounds. Storm drains and trunk lines, obviously we're heavily monitoring, ensure no flooding occurred with over 6 inches of rainfall plus in the month of May alone. We were able to get our lift back up and running. We had an emergency $1,500 repair. United Rentals had to come out and service it appropriately, so we were able to get the flags hung downtown for Memorial Day. We had curbside brush chipping and cleaning up and occurring in May for all the residents. We were able to remove 6 dead trees at the same time throughout public spaces, including parks and right-of-ways. I myself have been extremely busy procuring estimates for equipment and projects with the approval of the CIP. Of course, we got a lot of the dollars to put into our streets, parks, and we're heavy on the equipment side replacement this year too. So the administration side in May for myself was very busy, and I look forward to getting some things on the board in July for approval, including painting and some possible new roads or asphalt put in. On the park side, irrigation repair and maintenance occurred in May at the Braves Field. Mowing operations full swing. It's been nonstop. We really don't get off the mowers. We were very happy to get a seasonal about mid-May, which relieved the pressure ever so slightly. And she hit the ground. She hit the ground running very hard. And she's been mowing nonstop for us, so that's been great. Opens us up for emergencies and projects and continued maintenance. Herbicide treatment was also applied to some of the parks in May to combat some of the invasives that we have to constantly fight. On top of that, building maintenance, HVAC adjustments continue to be made. We had a couple rooftop unit issues again, high pressure. Also had one today. Fortunately, I was able to fix that internally. Didn't have to call anybody else. So got up on the roof, got the codes cleared, got the machine started back up running. So only 68 degrees in here. Feels good compared to last year. I think we talked about it being 80 last year in here. Any questions?
I just got one little question here. Towards the area on streets, towards the bottom of the report there, curbside brush chipping and cleanup occurred in May for all village residents. Staff were also able to remove 6 dead trees in different locations on public property while borrowing the wood chipper. Well, borrowing it to Dresser or what?
We borrow from Dresser. Dresser owns the chipper. We currently barter
Yeah.
equipment and services. We do their sweeping. And in lieu, we have the ability to utilize that chipper, which is
Yeah.
huge because not only can we make chips for residents in our own parks, but it cuts down drastically on the amount of brush that's hauled by being able to chip.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice chipper. That's a lot of, so they're pretty flexible with the schedule and stuff.
They're pretty flexible, given their workload and demands. They chip more often for the residents, but the third week essentially of the month, they generally do some chipping for their residents. And outside of that, they've been very, very willing to let us use it when necessary.
Yeah. You're okay with that?
Yeah, it's working. I just hope a storm doesn't hit.
Right. That's the
Dresser might
thing.
need it. We might need it.
Can I ask a quick question around, so at Rhubarb Fest, and I'm not lodging a complaint, I'm just explaining a conversation I had. I'm curious if you can help me understand how it works. What does Public Works do as it relates to like those bathrooms down there? Someone was like, oh, they ran out of towels or trash removal, that kind of thing. Is that when we're hosting events in those downtown spaces, are those sorts of things something that's on the backs of event planners to make sure that they have plans in place for that? Or is that something that we generally assist with? And how has that historically worked?
So on the weekends, the bathrooms are attended to first thing in the morning. They're unlocked, generally before 8 a.m., completely filled, cleaned, and ensured they're ready to go. We also, given that permit, we're set up Friday before we leave to make sure that everything that's been requested and approved by the board is given to them. There are a few times that we run into this. So major events, we do have someone on staff, and by that, the only one that we do is usually during the fair, Wheels and Wings, and of course, Harvest Bazaar, all happening at the same time. We have staff on site 8 hours a day. But I think it's appropriate when these permits are submitted, we ask for potential, amount of people expected at these events. And that, there's basic sort of calculators, bathroom per amount of people.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times during the application process, sometimes they like to maybe potentially skirt around the idea that instead of them potentially having to provide additional restrooms, i.e. like porta pots, because that's a cost to the event holder, or maybe they just don't know too. They could say maybe we're gonna have 200 people, but 400 to 600 show up, and then they would just kind of get bombarded. So fortunately, we did have someone on staff that was able to get in at a decent time.
I saw someone there
Yeah.
from the department, and so it looked like maybe that was planned or they were responding, but
That was not necessarily planned, and we do have our private numbers for emergencies. I guess we'd have to consider what we'd call a potential emergency, given our handbook policy and our union agreement. I guess that's where I come in and have to determine whether or not it's appropriate to send someone in 3 hours on overtime for a potential festival that was not planned appropriately.
Probably something to keep track of for next year to remind them, maybe they should bring their own porta potty in.
well, and I guess I'm asking primarily from the planning perspective of, I think if we're running into those issues, then as those events are coming in, just to flag it for next time.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe things have changed too in the last 6 months, but I know we talked about billing in the future for big events, things like that. And we haven't started doing that yet, correct?
That's correct.
Help cover costs for these events. I mean, I know they're a good community thing, but at some point, above and beyond regular hours, in my opinion, deserves some kind of reimbursement.
Show up on the fee schedule.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember having that conversation, and I think that makes sense, like particularly if it's something like we have called someone in special to go and do X. That's a cost that all village taxpayers are bearing right now in response to an event, which is great. And we want events and they bring people, they're fabulous. But I do think we need to be fair,
Yeah, I mean, the application has gone over in good faith by yourself, anybody else that's involved signing off on it. But I don't want to pay for something that, and I think the fee schedule would be fine for extra, the hours, labor, supplies.
Or just even a recommendation when you sign off on it next year, make a note and say that in the past it's been underserved by bathrooms.
Yeah, Todd and I have talked about that in the future too, making sure we're adding costs for cones and barricades as wear and tear on those items will have to eventually be replaced. So making sure there's rental costs associated with those items too.
I got a building maintenance question. So do you have a contract with somebody for the automation system here?
We do.
Who do you use?
Badger State at this time.
Does that cover other buildings too?
No, just this building at this time.
Is there automation systems at the other buildings?
None under Public Works. I don't know if you have an automation system for yours.
For what?
Fire
HVAC.
department?
No.
The basic thermostat up there essentially, turn it on, turn it off.
What's that?
At the fire department, it's just a basic thermostat, turns it on and off type
Basic
thing.
thermostats. We have 3 furnaces.
I just happened to run into a customer that had some issues where I remember from years back talking about recommissioning.
Sure.
And you're probably at a point on this building that if you had an issue last summer with 80 degrees and now this year you're fighting with things, at what point do you start to budget recommissioning and just having somebody come in and?
Yeah.
I've heard stories of old schools where people start jamming stuff in veins because that's what makes it work. And then
Yeah.
at some point, how do you get it back in order?
Yeah, we're
Absolutely.
already out of warranty, I believe, right? 5
Yeah.
years is what, that was it, yeah.
We're far out of-
23, we went out.
We're far out of warranty. Last year was the first year that I actually got a annual maintenance agreement. They come twice, filters, things like that, outside of normal maintenance from an individual who retired at a company. And so we brought Badger State on board because they were part of the process with the building. They know the facility. And one of the other issues too is we have to look at a potential maintenance agreement and just an annual maintenance agreement with the train system. So we have like this train operated data system that controls everything, but we don't have train rooftop units.
Yeah, nothing against any of your staff, but quite often I'll hear people are like, well, I know how to run the system. You don't.
We
Just-
prefer, yeah,
There's too much new technology and you get sensors that go bad. You're better off to just subcontract it out and get them in to check it out.
Yeah.
Some period.
absolutely.
I'm on board with that idea. Otherwise your system starts to fall apart.
It does.
Is there DPW hours on weekends too? Like people are scheduled and working on weekends?
We don't. At this time, we're working with utilities and have since I've been here for over a decade, or about a decade. So we take care of their snow removal efforts. We ensure that Public Works staff does all the plowing and snow removal during the winter time. And so it's kind of a cost saving measure at the same time.
Mhm.
Sort of, they are already scheduled. They have to come in on weekends, check towers, check stations, check everything. So at that time, while we fully prepare on Friday for any special event or the weekend in general this time of year, they in turn take care of our restrooms Saturday and Sunday morning.
Got it. Anybody else have anything for Todd? Are you going to be around for the remainder of the evening
I will
in
be.
case there's questions on
Yes.
later items? Okay,
Yep.
great, thanks.
Awesome.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, utilities.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Hello.
So we had an eventful month. I'm going to highlight this one here because this is probably the most interesting that I've never seen happen. But we had the control valve at the cell CV fail open and caused the tower to overflow. It doesn't come out the top. There's a pipe on there that's made to overflow in case something like that would happen, because otherwise you'd overpressure your system. But that was the first time in my 12 or 13 years here that I've actually seen that happen. So we were able to get in and get that repaired. Of course, that was the Friday before Labor Day at 3 p.m. So I added a valve, picture of the valve. Hopefully it showed up this time. You don't mind scrolling
It
down?
did.
Yeah.
Okay, it
no,
is.
it's-
All right, so
Very
if you're
well.
gonna just imagine getting called in and then have to critically think of how to fix that thing, that's what we do. So we were able to get that fixed within an hour, no damage to anything. Like I said, it's engineered to do that. But we start having problems with those valves right around year 4, and it is year 4. And I had literally just signed on to having those repaired, and we have them reconditioned every 4 years that morning. Because I was off, but I was like, I got to get this in. So it was just kind of poetic. It just all worked out that way. I was like, I just signed it. Come on, man. So they are scheduled to be repaired and completely rebuilt. There's a bunch of little gaskets and all sorts of orifices in those that are all gone through every 4 years, because if you push it out to 5, you start to have problems at year 4. So with that said, we are still low zone flushing. We're going to continue until complete. We're not running into like a drought by any means. So that's really nice. But we are meter reading, so that has slowed down where I'm stepping in and doing some flushing now. So hopefully keep that process going. The water and sewer tap for the fair building has been completed. So that kind of makes it official in our book. I mean, once you hook up to the utilities, it's game on. So we also met with representatives from SEH regarding the bluff tower. And Mike, we talked about this last at the committee meeting, but we are actually moving on from directional boring. There wasn't enough savings. It was kind of a wash if we were looking at directional drilling at this time. And so the other side of that too is if we set up a bore rig, we're talking 10-inch pipes, set up a bore rig at the top of that tower and shoot down, that there'd be like less disturbance of the soil and you could get away with a few more things, but your pipe would wind up at like 20 feet deep. And at that point, we just don't have access to it again. So we're kind of right back into the situation that we're at now, where we have a pipe that runs vertically and we don't have any access to it if you had a problem with it. So we're kind of taking that off the table for now, hitting the pause button on that and moving on with just a directional or open cut right up the road, take a right and move on to the tower. So the screen, we started having some issues with the screen yesterday at 3 o'clock. So that was nice. We got that back up and running. We had been kind of having an intermittent issue where it wouldn't run. The screen it's called a fine screen. So it's like a perforated stainless steel plate that's on a chain, and it moves through wastewater just like this as it's coming in. And so it would filter out any of the, lack of a better word, chunks that come through, and you don't want to go through your pumps or wind up in your plant. And so we started having an issue with that about a month ago, and it was really intermittent. We finally caught it yesterday, and it's all down to this old, it's called a Hydro Ranger flow meter. And so we can actually get somebody out to look at it now, because you don't really want to call somebody if you're having an intermittent problem and they come out and charge you, a service call fee to say, well, we didn't see anything, call us next time when it acts up again. So we took some videos of it. We were able to get it operational again. And so we're proud of that. It's functioning right now. We adjusted a backup float for it. So if it did back up again, it would run off of a float because it was just a little bit too high to kick it on where we thought it really needed to. So we're back up and running. If it does fail, it'll run on the temporary, and then we can get somebody else to take a look at it. So just like Mike was saying, if you kind of rig this and rig that, then it kind of starts to all fall apart after a while. So I'd like to get somebody out eventually to take a look at it. Any other questions on the report?
Just one.
Dan, what's up?
When the valve stuck, how much water went out?
Oh, not much, actually. We flushed more than probably we lost because as we fixed the valve, then we had to test the valve. So you have to turn it on and off multiple times to make sure it's going to open, make sure it's going to close. Because I didn't want to be here again on Memorial Day weekend.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we went down to the plant. We hooked up the flusher. We flushed out, probably 3,000-4,000 gallons out of a hydrant to lower that tower level, so we didn't just sit there and overflow the tower. Not that any damage or anything would really happen because there's a splash pad. Like I said, it's engineered to do it. We just didn't want to find out at 3 o'clock on a Friday.
Yeah.
If we had never seen it happen.
Typical.
Don't push it. So we didn't really lose too much. We lost more flushing the hydrant.
And then, so that line, that new water line.
Yep.
So that goes down how far and then over to where you need it to go?
The new one hasn't been drawn up yet as far as like a biddable plan.
Parallel with it or anything?
With the old one? No, we won't be doing, we won't be putting that in the same location. If you stand at the back of BP and look and kind of line up the tower,
Yeah.
that's about where the pipe runs underneath the creek there, and then almost straight up that hill, and then takes a right and a left, and it, if you have some time, I'd walk it with you. I'd show you right where it's
Yeah,
at.
I think we'll go look at it.
It'd be awesome.
The only reason why I'm curious, you know, about the bat caves and all the stuff.
Yes, that is all in consideration.
Yeah. So when you're doing that boring, you know, I've been in all those caves, so
Yep.
I know exactly what's going on.
And that was
there.
actually a main concern of
Yeah.
the boring person that was out.
Yes.
That they could potentially disturb that. And so we were looking at doing boring ourselves to see what, you know, we could go as deep as we needed to make sure that we weren't going to have an issue.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we would be very unpopular if we bored through a bat cave. So we were very cognizant of the fact that those existed. Fissures in the rock, you know,
Yep.
was there. He talked extensively about that. So another good point and a little bit of a turnoff for us. was
Yeah.
that too. But yeah, and on that site, that site's really challenging because you have a wetland. So you have the creek that goes through there.
Yeah.
You have the Bat Cave. You have the Geiger Brewery site,
Yep.
and then the railroad and Highway 35.
So much connected.
and 243 all in like one site. So when you look at it, you're like, okay, this isn't that bad. You know, it's just pipe going up a road, but it's like there's just so
It's
much going on.
Terrible spot.
Yeah.
So maybe the DNR has it mapped out and
Yeah. Yep.
the researchers have that mapped out also. So,
Yep. So I'm gonna reach out to the DNR and our consultants will too to see if there's any mapping on
Yeah.
that cave itself.
I'm pretty sure they do. I think they did some sort of,
I would imagine they did for the amount of time that they placed into those caves.
they were in there a long time.
So yeah.
That's it for me.
So Rick, you're right. I did kind of geek out at our meeting the last time. And it's funny because that's what I did today as I was down looking at some directional boring that an engineer had put on some plans on a project I'm working on. When it was all done, I'm disappointed the engineer thought directional boring was a good idea because it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's downtown St. Paul,
Sure. Yeah.
across the street.
Yep.
Not with a street, but across.
Challenging. Very challenging. I can imagine all the stuff that's in
Light rail and some district energy and
Yep.
stuff like that. So anyway, if you do get the SEH back out here again, I would like to, if you're going to show him the bat caves, you can walk me up the hill and see what
Yeah.
SEH is looking at. Because I don't want to pick on SEH,
Sure.
but I've worked with engineers, including SEH, and sometimes they put things on paper that look easy.
Oh yeah, I don't think anybody is thinking this one's
It's
going
easy
to
to draw a
be easy.
line on paper.
They've been out several times, you know, as part of the project. I don't know if I'd have them out specific to walk the site again, but I would be happy to walk the
Get a
site
set
with
of
you guys
plans
and
or
just.
something, just wave at me and say, hey, look at these.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just curious.
Sure.
That's-
Yeah, it's gonna fall on our lab. if
Oh yeah, you're going to
south
absolutely
on
see it
this.
here.
Well, it's just like Simmons Drive. I mean, there's probably a lot of options that came to on paper before we finalized on something, and then it was maybe over budget and we had to back up. And
Sure.
I hope SEH is doing some of that too.
Absolutely. We hash these things internally quite a bit. There's been quite a bit of conversation back and forth between me and them regarding this project and others. You know, what is really the best way for us is the answer at the end of the day. You know, that's a question.
Well, you might get some value added by going up that road. You might be able to get it tore up enough to get it
Well, we
surface. Or
would get a decent road out of it. I don't think I'd pave it or anything, but
No, but you might just get better gravel
you know,
or a better bed or.
yep. And then we
more
brought up some
accessible.
stormwater concerns too, of maybe we could put in a swale or something to manage the water a little bit better than, you know, just letting it fall down the hill.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have a washed out road all the time, because we do need access there. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, a freeway or anything, but it would be nice to get up there without without having the water.
Well, we have
in the middle of
emergency,
winter.
emergency
But-
services too, you know,
Yep.
that has to get up there, so.
Yep, there is some cell services out there too that, you know, technically, I believe we are required to provide access, but that does not include plowing, so I just usually tell them to walk. They brought in their own stuff I mean, you gotta provide access, I mean, have that, you know? You come out in the middle of winter, it's Wisconsin, you know,
Yeah.
get used to it, so.
Where are we at with the GIS mapping project that you were working on last
Cruising
summer?
away. We're about 30 connections left on that lead and copper, and that's what our really next hurdle is. So we can get just done and off the plate because we're working on our permits due at the end of the month, and then CMAR is due at the end of the month. That we've just been working diligently on, in between flushing, in between, hey, it's nice, so we got to go do this, in between, hey, this thing failed. But so once we get that done, we're going to move on to GIS mapping and get the rest of the downtown done, and then we can start drafting the lines this winter here to kind of show flow directions for sewer and sizes of water mains and things like that. It's getting all of the points onto the map itself, and then you can kind of draw lines. Another huge component of that was actually getting internet down to the plant, because running all of that, so having 2 to 3 people on.
Yeah, it slowed you to a crawl before. Yeah.
It's insanely so. So you would have to move your cursor to hover over a point before you could even select it, and then
Oh
move,
my God.
and then drop your point. And it was insanely
Yeah,
slow.
because it's all cloud-based, right?
It's all
Yeah.
cloud-based,
Yeah.
so it's like rendering the ultimate Google map constantly.
Yeah.
So it seems to be working really well with our new internet.
And you were filming a lot of it too, right? You were video feeding?
We
some of
have
it?
video of it, but we're not gonna upload that because it's all cloud-based, and we'd have to pay for the storage of it. We just
Got
don't think that that's, kind of worth it.
Yeah,
But we are taking all of our prints that we have, anything that's scannable has been scanned in, and then we can hot link that directly into that map. So anybody can pull up that map, and there's a special icon that you'll see that's, a piece of paper, and you can click on that piece of paper and it'll bring up the print for the area. So like if you're working downtown, you click on the special icon and it brings up the PDF of the print for downtown when they did it in 2005. So anything that's really current or hasn't been reconstructed, we're trying to get that in there too, because there's just so much value in it. To
Mhm.
be able to stand in the field and say, oh yeah, this is exactly what they did. You have an as-built and access right to it. So.
Any surprises found in the last month?
Oh yeah,
You
always.
You've dug some trenches, quite a few
Oh,
actually.
no surprises at the custom fire site. I mean, there's a lot of rock, but we were expecting that. It seemed to be, the guys told me that it seemed to be the base of an old dump up on 7th Avenue.
Really?
Yeah, some old stuff down in there. But when we dug up the hill a little bit further, there was quite a bit.
Really?
Yeah, they're just old trash, old bottles, old broken stuff. Yeah. So I don't know if that makes sense to anybody that's been around. I don't think it's, you've been around to see a dump back then, but if anybody ever talked about it, how people are. Oh, yeah.
It could have been a private dump, too, maybe, I don't know.
I heard that they used to do that with old outhouses.
Yeah,
When it got full, you finished with a few little pieces of trash and then covered
Right.
it back up.
right. Yeah, I've heard that too.
I found bottles that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so far as piping and things, I think we've found probably, let's put it this, I hope we don't find any more surprises. I'm kind of good on that. But it's a good thing that we are doing, because we can identify, potential weak points or areas that we need to replace water main on, or, say Todd's doing the street and we now know that that water main was put in the 50s. Maybe we should look at it. These are all things that we're doing through that mapping project to say, hey, this is old, or hey, this is a problem with this pipe. Same with the televising. We found, I think I talked about it before. We found a leak that we took care of. We estimated it to be about, I believe it was 15,000 gallons a day. And when we had it repaired, which sounds like a lot, right? I mean, 15,000 gallons a day. We're putting about 300,000 through the wastewater plant, per day. And so it kind of gets lost in there. But when we repaired that, I think we spent maybe $2,500 on the repair. And we had a crew come out and they injected this grout in there, and the flow dropped at the plant by an average about 30,000 gallons a day.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was quite. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking at. I mean, we don't like to be here on Saturday. That's kind of our motto. Like, let's fix it during the week. Let's look at it. Let's make
Right.
sure it's operational. And things are going to constantly break. It's going to fail, and it's no doubt it's going to fail on a Friday or a Saturday afternoon. But we just try to make it not. We try to make it not fail. We try to get on top of all of that. Look at it. Make sure it works. If you need to, get somebody out and take a look at it. So that's kind of the program that we run. It's kind of our model. Let's not do it on Saturday.
Not if you don't have to.
Not if you don't have to.
Hey, it's doing a good job.
So, thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. Okay, library, Ann.
These poor people are just getting just raked. Questions?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
So when preparing for our new employee, I discovered that our internal procedures had not been updated since we moved into the new building. So I took that time and spent updating and revising opening and closing procedures, instructions for the copy machine and printer, as well as updating our timesheet to reflect our current employee situation. In May, I was also able to attend my first in-person Moore Directors Council meeting in Eau Claire, where we received a preview of the 2025 Moore budget. And the hearing and discussion for that budget will actually be on Friday. And then with the actual vote happening at the Directors Council in July. So in May, our numbers are traditionally down, and this year was no different. So this year, we circulated 4,119 items. 110 computer uses and 1,365 ebook checkouts and 19 new patrons. We added 166 new items to our shelves in May. So May is traditionally a time for our major preparation for the summer learning program. And we usually take a small break from youth programming during May. So Michelle still held 2 story times at the beginning of the month, but she used guest readers. So Brenna Weston, from the director of the Polk County Historical Society Museum, and Wendy Tremblay from Wild Rivers Conservancy came in and were guest story readers. Michelle also visited the Osceola Intermediate School to promote the summer learning program, and she spoke to all 15 of the classes during one day, so she was exhausted at the end of that day. And Marcia Dressel, the Osceola School librarian, brought classes of 1st and 2nd graders to the library for a visit to take a tour and learn about the library and the summer programming. Unfortunately, it was, this spring, so there were several days that it stormed when they were going to come, so we had to cancel those visits. And Lego Club also met 2 times during the month. The book bike is now out of storage and back on the street, and I want to thank the Osceola Police Department for storing our bike down in the garage. I've already taken the bike to Evergreen Senior Apartments, and we'll be adding Millside Apartments to the rotation of locations we visit with the bike. And we're also planning on making appearances at the Osceola Farmers Market, but there, instead of checking out books, we will have books for sale from the Osceola, the Friends of the Osceola Library. And both of our adult book discussions met during May. So I did hire a new library assistant. So Hunter Chapman started on May 21st. So Cora and I have been very busy training him on all of the tasks that we do at the library. But he's a very quick learner and will be a good addition to our staff. So are there any questions?
The procedures, the updates, was some of it because of, I know, moving in and then lots of things were going on, and then during COVID. And so you're kind of playing catch up to a lot of stuff.
I'm not sure why it had never been done. I think part of it was we moved in here, and just a few months after that, Kelly left, and then it was, months before a new,
Yeah.
Shelby was hired, and then, and then COVID happened. So I think a lot of that had to do with it. But, it was things like the old building had an alarm system. Well, we don't have an alarm system
Right.
here, so we don't need to have that in our
Right.
procedures and things like that. And we have a new copy machine, that has color, and that needs to be reflected, and all the different things you can do with that. So
Yeah, well, it's good. It's good to see you're getting caught up to that.
yeah, about time.
Adds clarity to the job.
Yes, yeah. Well, and we really haven't had a lot of new people come on board too.
Yeah.
So it, if you don't have to put the book out there, then you don't look at it. So
Right.
So you mentioned this more budget. Can
Yes.
you help me understand what you're talking about there?
So we belong to a consortium of 54 libraries, and to be part of that, we pay in to do that.
Okay.
So like when you go look on our catalog, that's part of the MORE budget. And all of the things that they provide, like our courier service is part of the MORE budget. So every year then that's gone through and new things are added or taken away and
And the
adjusted.
directors of each of those member libraries are the people who ultimately approve that.
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, so we get to talk about it this Friday and then hopefully we'll have it in July.
How'd you do at emptying the storage shed?
It is empty.
Yay.
Yes, so our last day using the storage shed is June 30th.
Except for the Thomas the Train set.
Wow.
It's
That's
still-
out in the hallway, yes.
Yeah.
Any one of you is welcome to take that lovely train table home with you tonight.
Young child.
Too little.
Too little.
So, yeah,
Not for long.
yeah, we just have a few things. We held the garage sale this Saturday. This past Saturday, it was very successful. We got rid of a lot of stuff. We moved what we didn't sell out of this room into the small senior center meeting room and are gradually working on getting all of that dispersed to various locations and hope to be out of that by Friday.
Fantastic.
A lot of good progress.
Yeah. So, any other questions? All right, thanks.
Thanks, Ann.
Oh, this one's
All
gonna
right,
take
next
a
up,
while.
fire.
Hi, everybody. It's been busy month. This last month, we had 12 runs, 6 in the village, 5 in the town of Farmington, 1 mutual aid for Sassago County. Our run breakdown is 3 motor vehicle accidents, 7 medical lift assists, 1 alarm, and 1 search and rescue on the river. Training for May was, we walked through Polaris and we went through the schools just as a precautionary on all the utilities and then also for shooter incident. What we've been doing lately is planning for a shooter incident of what we would do. So just in case if it ever, happens or there's a threat. Upcoming training will be, we're going to be down at the river doing water rescue, and then we're going to take 4-wheelers and go through standing cedars. We're getting a guided tour of all their trails so that if we have any rescues on there, we know exactly where to go and by the, where county will dispatch us to. But a lot of us have never been on the trails down there, so it's pretty hard for the fire department to all go down the trails walking because if we get a run, we got to get back. So we're going to use 4-wheelers and they're going to lead us through and give us a tour. So other than that, our airboat should be done the second week of July. So we're starting to get ready to figure out going down, getting training and the whole 9 yards with that. So any other questions?
You have to go to the plant first.
There's 3 or 4 of us that are gonna go down, we'll get training down there and then, sounds like if we want, he'll come up here and train us a little bit. We're getting a manual from Lindstrom. We're, kind of getting, they have 4 pilots and those pilots are trained in actually running the airboat. And we're going to get some training from them, but we're going to get their manual on because you have to have about 20 hours of stick time on their manual before you can go do a rescue. So we're going to have to do some good training on the river and running around with it. So.
Sounds like tough training to me.
Oh, Ron, you can.
May not see any fishing poles on there or anything.
I'll tell you what, I'll call you and you can be the board member representative to come down.
Yeah, I guess if someone has to.
Wait a minute now. I didn't see the sign-up sheet for this.
We will invite all the board members down to the river when we're running it, because like I said, we have to have some stick time, so, you guys can come down and go for a ride in it, so. Any other questions?
I got a couple.
Okay.
The inspection is, obviously the hangar's been an issue, but when you inspect, can you just tell me what are you inspecting for?
This year, the first few years that we got in, we inspected for fuel load. because we had one incident where we had a lot of fuel in a hangar, like 45 barrels of fuel sitting in the hangar. A guy was gonna sell fuel. And I went down and, made him take it all out. But since then, we inspect fuel load, which is, if there's cars in there, if there's airplanes, how much the airplanes hold, so that everything goes on image trend. We register. Now, our goal is that we take our tablet. If we ever have a hangar fire, we can bring it up either before we get there or as we get there, and we know how many planes are stored in there, if there's vehicles in there, if there's a camper in there, what's in there, and then how much fuel each thing is basically loaded. I refer to most of the pilots as in the wintertime, because that's when these are mostly full. And that way we know, I always kid them, but I said, at least I can count the number of explosions before we go in the door, because as avgas, avgas is 3 times what gasoline is, and when that goes, it blows. It doesn't, that's like the movies.
Yep.
It's not like just the gas today where it just barely burns. So we inspect for that. And then this year, because of our issues 2 years ago with the snow load on the roofs, a lot of the pilots have started heating their hangars. And when they did, they brought their natural gas meter on the drip side of the hangar and also the exhaust pipe going out. We had one incident 2 years ago where the snow fell off the roof and it broke the gas meter. Luckily, it was above ground. It was in the diaphragm, but the snow buried the meter. And so we got called for a natural gas leak out at the airport, and we went out there and we had to literally dig down to get to the meter. Off our shelves would hit that, but then it was flowing steady. So a full 3/4 inch main, it's a lot of natural gas. Well, it saturated the snow also. So we had to be very careful on that, but we got that out. A week or two later, we had an incident where a guy went in to open up his hangar, went in, and as he looked down his hangar, his exhaust pipe was laying on the ground. Well, what happened is the snow fell off the roof, knocked the exhaust pipe all right out of the furnace, and the furnace was running inside. Had he gone in there, he'd have been toast from carbon monoxide poisoning. So we lucked out there. So now what we're doing is making them either put little roofs over them or change them. And so that was our deal this year. We do have a book of airport inspections. It's right from NSPA, and they will, it's just on hangar inspections. And what we're doing is we're bringing up codes every year that are new codes and everything else. I did have to go in front of the airport commission and tell them that the new code between hangars is 50 feet instead of 20 feet like normal, and 30 feet. Some of them are 30 feet, most of them are 20 feet out there. Well, when you're an insurance company and you're paying, when you're paying out if a hangar burns, and yours, the one that you are insuring burns and the neighbors burn, each hangar out there is guesstimated with an airplane in it, and the hangar costs probably over $500,000. So that's why we have to start stepping up on the codes and making sure that the right distances are. And the only thing is the airport commission would not like to hear it because they're doing a master plan right now on
Space.
how it's space, but that's new legal codes, and we have to make sure that we do that. And then we also have to make sure we provide good fire protection to all the hangars. So that's why the K hangars are they don't have any hydrants down there, and so we're trying to get where we've got enough LDH and that to run down there and be able to provide water without having to tanker it all.
So is that
That's on the north end, way down at the end.
Yeah.
And so anyway, there's a lot of codes that are having to be brought up to date. And I'm just doing some each year,
Yep.
trying to get everything caught up.
That was very, that's just hangar wise. Are you actually doing fire inspections throughout the rest of town too?
We do 2 times, for businesses, it's 2 times a year, and the schools and apartments. And then the hangars are just once a year per lease.
So everything, this has obviously been a topic a few times. I'm just surprised we haven't heard anything more about the other places in town.
We deal with each one of those, and there's exit lights out, there's piddly stuff, there's, a few that we've had to get after as far as their gas meters also that are dangerous, but we pretty much handle that, and it's kind of private between the business and the fire department, but we make sure we cover everything twice a year, and then Tanner goes back for the revisit. It's in our budget. Our budget costs have gone up on inspections by a lot in the last few years because we do have a lot of revisits. And we charge $21 to do the hangar inspection and then, or the business inspection, and then we do $21 for revisit. But we have to make sure we cover that so that everything is done. Hangar inspections, I have probably, 20 to 25, I would say, that didn't pass this year because of the exhaust and the, covered roofs.
Yeah.
And so we're dealing with them, and I'm giving them until July 31st to build a small roof over. August 1st, I'll go around, and anybody that doesn't, I'll get a hold of them, and if they don't do it, then we'll fine them. But, it's getting good. I mean, we're from 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we really started doing all the hangar inspections and getting our inspection program up to date. Now I've got 4 inspectors, so it's really good. You can go around and manage everything. It was tough to do it when you're not full-time.
Yeah, you gotta divide it
Well,
up.
people keep moving things around.
Oh, we have 90 hangars to do, and we have, I don't know, Joey, how many businesses? Yeah, 100.
Not that I don't care about a hangar, but the loss of life up there is probably a little bit lower than some of the businesses downtown.
Well,
The
yeah,
impact, but
yeah. The thing is with the hangars though, is you never know if people are there or not. 'Cause some people park their cars inside, outside, so.
Sure.
If there's ever a hangar fire, we have to make sure we take it serious, that there's still could be people in there, So,
Are hangar owners, I mean, I guess I'm surprised that they would do that kind of alterations and, feels like we've known that snow slides off roofs for a long time. And so are they obligated to follow like any particular codes when they're doing this, and were they not? Or, and this is academic, I suppose, I'm sorry.
it's just, until 5 years ago, we've never really got into doing very much
Just an
hangar
enforcement.
inspections
It was an
because
enforcement thing.
we would set up 3 weekends in the summer and nobody would show,
Okay.
or a couple would show. But now, since I was assistant chief, I got our inspections program up to date, and we're going for and I make them do them. And if they don't do them in the month of April, Gary sends a letter out, then we send out a certified letter to the ones that don't. And if we don't get any response, then it's $50 a day fine from the time the certified letter goes out. So until the village owns the hangar.
Get your attention.
Yeah,
Or
there
whatever.
was policy and procedure with that. That was one thing that had to be developed, was just absolutely everything spelled out. So it protects the fire department too, because they just go down the line,
Mhm.
and it's the same thing for everybody.
So, good. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, next up, building inspection and administration.
Yeah, building inspection, we had one new home, one accessory building, which would be the fair building. That was
Yay.
one of the big fees for the building permits, and one manufactured home. Other than that, it was basically just your average home renovation permits for the month. At the July meeting, I will have permit report to compare years again, like I did last year, see where we're at comparing for that.
Great.
So that will be at the next meeting to see if we're more or less where we were a year ago. Administration, I want to thank staff as they've been working hard in my absence for the week and a half where I did not answer emails or phone calls. Everything is working in just the way I left it, so that means they're doing an amazing job, so I'm very happy with that. Before I went out for my little break, Neil and I visited InvestCast. It was kind of fun to see an operation. Not many people actually know the products that are developed in the industrial park up there. There are a lot of very interesting businesses that produce a lot of materials that you'd never guess. InvestCast, for instance, they do a lot of casting of metal that will end up in products, whether it would be a hospital, a military grade bomb, or something like that. They make various levels of products that people don't realize are made in our community. The reason we were there originally was to discuss daycare and how we can improve access to that within our community, within the industrial park and their employers. We're hoping to continue this conversation as the summer goes. Tomorrow we have another meeting to discuss how to proceed with how can we impact daycare and the availability of it for people within the community. July will be the start of the budget season. The department heads will be receiving their 6 months of their 2024 expenditures to start creating their budget items for the departments. Then from there, Tanny and I will collect those in July and August and formulate a preliminary budget for the board to look at in September. Other than that, there's some housing developments that I'm working on. There are some exciting possibilities for commercial and industrial within the community too. And we're currently working through our new phone system. We're having some installation problems, part of our user errors, I'm guessing, but bear with us as we work through these as we're adjusting to our new phone system in the office. Any other questions that you have for me for the little update?
Great, thanks, Devin. Okay, we'll have you just continue straight on then to Chamber of Commerce Main Street, as Wyatt is unavailable to be here this evening, so Devin is gonna bring us up to speed.
Main key thing is Celebrate Osceola is Thursday. They'll be presenting 6 awards at that presentation. There's also going to be a silent auction and some other opportunities to help raise funds for the community, for the Chamber of Commerce and the things they provide the community. Where's the location again?
Croyview Farms.
Croyview Farms on Thursday. So that is one of the big things they're doing. The chamber director last day was the 23rd, so they are currently without a director. What the Rhubarb Fest was last weekend. I do not have the exact numbers of what was in the community. Wyatt usually has those numbers as he does a lot of geo-tracking of phones. So he'll be able to present that in July of how many people or unique visitors came for that weekend. Wyatt's doing some amazing things on his Main Street. He's getting reaches of almost 600,000 people on his Facebook posts. His website or his page has 29,000 unique followers. So he's doing something right there for the Main Street community that he's providing and the bid district. And then, as you can see on his other posts, he has been reaching out outside of the community regularly with his posts about the falls and just overall what downtown Osceola can provide. And then the train season kicked off, so we are now in train season 2 for the summer.
Anybody have any questions? Oh, all right, thanks, Devin, appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna move on to new business. Item 6 on the agenda, other business, discussion and possible action regarding 6A 2022-2023 CIP discussion. I want to thank Tanya for giving us some time tonight and come to the meeting to talk about this. And I know you've been sharpening your pencil a lot over the last couple of weeks, so let's hear the good news.
Well, I've listed it out here in the memo with, different ideas of things that we can use the extra funds for. As far as like, the admin funds that we had for the accounting program update, we didn't do that. So, my suggestion is that we save some of those funds and, do kind of a cleaning in the village hall that hasn't been done since we moved in, I guess. Cleaning of carpets, washing of windows, cleaning the tile in all the different areas, just, having somebody come in, hiring somebody to come in and do these extra type things. And any, drywall repair that might need to be done, and especially like painting in the hallways of all, upstairs, downstairs. Cause, even in your own homes, after you have new paint, it doesn't take long to look worn and you need to redo it. So that's my suggestion, cause if we don't keep the building looking nice, it's just gonna keep deteriorating and why not? So, if we have the funds available to do that, then why not do it? Also, we need to get another voting booth. We're right at the maximum for what we have available for, and so adding new residents, we really need to plan ahead for this, and especially coming up this fall with the presidential, it's gonna be kind of chaos, and we'd like to get people through here just as quickly as we possibly can, and, keep the lines to minimum and those kinds of things. And also, the security cards, the door locking system, we've been having some issues with that. The system is outdated and we don't have any support anymore.
Yeah, it's very little. Matt has had a lot of problems reaching the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very
So-
antiquated system that's not
Right,
longer
and we're
updated.
having to pay our IT people to try to deal with these things. Well, it would make sense to get a bid of, upgrading some kind of a lot of the different places, the security places have, where you can have an app on your phone or whatever it is, just something much easier than what we have right now to, update times that things need to be locked or open, or, just dealing with all those things so we're not paying. We'll actually, hopefully we could save money on our IT if we have something like this, an upgrade that we could do. And we're waiting, Todd was gonna talk to the person he was dealing with on the locks for the bathrooms down there, just to kind of get an idea of what that might cost. And depending on what that comes in at, we could always get another quote as well, but just keeping some of those funds so that we can keep things updated here and, just makes sense. And then Todd has a few items that he has for the leftover dollars in the public works area. I don't know if he wants to talk on those.
Yeah,
And they're in the next couple of items, so we can just lump them all together if that's okay.
and Ron can attest to how difficult that system is to use for the doors.
Now, that system it was antiquated about 2 years after we got it.
Yeah.
And for a while, when a lot of people left, I was the primary user in that system, and there are a lot easier systems that staff members can use that could do different things. When we have special meetings, you can just push a button and make sure that they're unlocked for everybody to attend. We've had bad luck over the years. We're having a meeting, all of a sudden people are, waving.
Trying
us
to
the
get
whole
in,
door,
yeah.
Trying to get in. So, yeah, there are a lot better systems out there. And I'm actually pleasantly surprised to see how much the upgrade costs. It's not, you think it'd be a lot more, but it's not too bad.
We'll find out. We'll still get quotes for that to see.
Yeah.
And then Public Works, one thing I do want to add is the cost did come in under for the Simmons Drive project. I would hold off a little bit of money just to make sure that any contingencies that might happen with the project happen. But luckily, we have a total remaining of 68,000, which should help with that part. Tanny, what you looking at? Look confused.
68, you said?
No, we have total remaining.
Oh,
from-
gotcha. Sorry.
Sorry. So from the whole thing, we have 68,000. I'm saying that with the Simmons Drive project, because it came in under, we got the exact specs, but we should still hold a portion of that 68 in case there's any overruns on that large project.
Last year's.
And then we'll just go right down the, Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
So again, these are all proposals outside of the $10,000 that we still have left over from that CIP to finish the old bus garage painting. The roof has been completed. Now we're trying to get the painting done and awaiting proposals. But some of the things like to get done that have been discussed as of recent. We have issues with, of course, Mill Pond Park. So that estimate has came in. We've moved forward with electronic locks. We'll have the ability to control, and that'll be the same individual or company that'd like to bring in and try to start streamlining the processes here at the village. The door locks, the camera system. We have all these out of date systems that aren't even talking to each other. And I know it's only been 6 years. However, even when they were first implemented, they've never worked together appropriately. So I think as we've discussed in the past, the water line and concrete, Wilkie Park. We've talked about moving the skate park for a number of years now. Hope it's solidifying.
The skating rink, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the skating rink, not the skating park. I'm not gonna move that.
You can put it back up on top of the hill again?
Yeah, so we'd like to have it back on top of the hill. We have the potential to use either these dollars or the potential to use, because it's a new project, the potential to use our Parks Impact Fee dollars, but it's a low budget project that's going to serve during the fair at the top of the hill. Obviously, they're working off of a hydrant that we've kind of frowned upon over the years, Rick. So we'd like to get a water line in there. We'll get that warming shack moved, and then you kind of an all-inclusive winter sort of place for people to conduct their stuff. And then water fountain and bathroom up at Oki Park. Recently was contacted by an organization that provided me an application that was willing to potentially provide donated dollars if we were willing to upgrade our Oki Park restroom and would like to be a part of that. However, we don't have any dollars except for the potential of these leftover CIP dollars. No, I shouldn't say or, because Park Impact Fee will not cover sort of they'll cover a new restroom, but they're not going to recover the maintenance of one. So that's just a kind of a small estimate, doesn't include, nor have we applied until they potentially procure some dollars to do an upgrade to this restroom, that I would, of course, submit the application to the organization for donation dollars. So that we have something that we can actually have some monies to actually move forward and do something. Outside of that, upcoming in the agenda, of course, requesting the potential and or discussion or action on $50,000 for a bucket truck, used bucket truck. And then potential additional funds for Oki Park bathroom. A water cooler's $5,000, a water fountain's $5,000. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe, but we have these dated, almost 20-year-old water fountains that were donated at $5,000 that are now becoming out of service. So that would be our request for those potential dollars that are left over at this time.
Yeah, and keep in mind, these are dollars that were not used for the borrow for the 23-22 CIP, and the reason why they were unused is projects coming in under cost than for what we borrowed for. So when projects came in under cost, we looked at the departments where the costs were saved from, and we're allocating them back to the departments where the cost savings were from.
I got a questions, comments, I guess. And I don't know where we're at with this, but we did just implement that purchasing policies. There's been a lot of comments about security and access and stuff like that. It seems like you could, I think you're on the light side at $5,000. I'd be cautious. What are we buying? Are we buying another antiquated system or something that's going to, consumer grade or might not last very long? And especially if we've got multiple buildings that need it.
Yeah.
It might be one of those where you're just spending good money by spending more and getting something that's more long-term, commercial grade type thing.
Absolutely. The company that I'm working with is going to be providing commercial grade. We've already discussed sort of billing an annual maintenance fee of $388 annually for the electronic locks, and this is just strictly at Mill Pond bathroom. Things can of course change if this company reviews this building as well.
What I was suggesting was maybe even if you just spent money on new down there,
sure,
if that system wasn't something that was maybe robust enough to really service the village over the next 10, 15 years,
sure,
then maybe even scrap what you've already done and move to something different.
Okay. That's one of the things I buy on a regular basis. It goes quick.
but at the same point, it doesn't take much to upgrade over time, you know?
Sure.
Um, yeah, just that seems way too light. Like if you told me you wanted to spend 50 grand on it and cover all the buildings, that seems a lot more plausible to me.
Yeah.
Better investment.
Right now, we're looking at about $3,100 fee for installation of the mechanics, just for Mill Pond restroom, 2 doors, and then a $388 annual subscription for monetization. And that monetization fee is strictly for the application, for us to be able to control, the ability to control through an application.
Yeah.
To close.
There's a lot of systems out there that don't require subscription-based either, where you can buy the software and you own it.
Okay.
Granted, you might have to buy new software every 10 years or something, but there's a value added at some point. I guess it's,
Would it be worth too, looking at what it would cost to add the restroom at the Braves Field? Or is that not utilized enough annually to where what we currently have works? I mean, if we're looking at doing it all, we might as well do it all.
So we'd certainly like to include all restrooms. We're kind of, because of the vandalism and the high use at Mill Pond Park, it's sort of a case study. It's low budget, kind of low impact, especially to our O&M. It will have to slightly increase with the annual fee, but this is cellular based at this time. We don't unfortunately have enough Wi-Fi power to sort of get everything into one network.
you could easily, I mean, you got bathrooms there, you got bathrooms in the future at Oki, you got the fire department, you got the municipal buildings, you got this building, you got well buildings. It seems like $5 grand addresses one building, and now you've got multiple systems. You know,
Yeah.
maybe some are just keyed, and that's the only the intent you ever have.
Yeah, at this point in time, this is the only building that is at that level of security.
Well, maybe it's a 5-year plan where you just don't
I-
spend the money now and wait 5 years and spend more money.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love to get rid of, I think I have 42 keys at this point in time.
Yeah,
If we can eliminate those, that'd be great.
yeah, rekeying a lock is expensive.
It is, yeah.
It's easy to code somebody out of a system and give them a new pass card or a fob or something. And it seems like there's, I know you don't have internet at those buildings, but you got internet at pretty much every other building now.
Yeah, out of our 22 spaces, this one, of course, utilities, we don't have anything in the public works facility. We're potentially working with utilities on beaming something over, but we're having some issues given our location down in that basin. And there's
At which location, sorry?
down on Depot Road where the
Okay,
utility
okay,
plant,
that's
yeah.
where I thought you were.
Yeah, so Public Works down there at this time has no ability to get internet.
It's just, yeah, same issue Rick was running into.
No directional antennas or nothing?
I think there was talk about potential.
Not yet. The prior internet connection was barely able to support us, so it wasn't really worth beaming anywhere. So now that we have our new connection, so I will be beaming over, just bridging. I'm probably not using the right term, but using it to get it to the shop itself.
Mhm.
Probably with some ubiquity.
Yep.
Obviously, there's a cost to all that needs to be figured in, but
Yeah, it's relatively small, though. Yeah, the ubiquity stuff is great stuff.
2024, we gotta have Wi-Fi everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm surprised you don't have it already.
yeah.
Carrier pigeons.
We've been using it for the fair for a number of years with the fair organization, so it's nice.
It's the same thing on that painting too. It seems like we have multiple buildings that could be used to be painted. And at some point, do you bundle them together and get some competitive bids and
We certainly do try. A lot of painting we do internal. The size and scope of that building was, we procured 35,000 through the CIP in 22-23. Got the roof replaced appropriately, as we're no longer even really housing anything public works standpoint. But we're housing all of the Braves equipment and then maintenance items, and then including Main Street and Chamber of Commerce and stuff as well.
yeah. I'm just thinking you are definitely, I hear this a lot, you're strapped for hours and things come up, you get storms, you get mowing and whatever. If you could bundle a handful of buildings that need paint, send it out for bid to somebody.
No, absolutely. It's unfortunate. I tried at the end of last year and also this last month in May, and I can't get anybody to paint a building, unfortunately. I can't even get a quote.
Interesting. unemployment rates keep going up, so maybe that'll start to turn. Keep trying.
Yeah.
What is needed from us? Are we approving this, just
Input
discussing?
and opinions
Okay.
on
There's
the,
no decisions
Yeah.
being made tonight on this?
yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer on the voting booth, so I think that needs to be at the top of the list for sure. And it's not that expensive. It's $1,200, you know.
The $5,000 that's in there for that upgrade for the securities, that's just a placeholder. We don't have bids yet. We haven't gotten anything, so that may need to be,
I figure you're all stuck with me for a couple of years.
Yeah.
You showed up at another
So-
1.8 and said, hey, we want to spend 50 on a whole new security system. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because that's a long range plan. It's a good
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah, I mean, in
If
terms
it means
of,
you don't spend money now.
right, I
Don't hurt my
agree,
feelings.
I
This-
agree.
Yeah, this is one of those things we have money available for, and this has been a constant problem within our community and parks. How many times has that thing been vandalized in the last 3 months?
Just since the revamping of it, it's been vandalized 3
You
times.
might find somebody that can integrate security and cameras together.
So that's one of the things is we immediately wanted to address that problem of the vandalism happening at that bathroom repeatedly because at the amount that they were charging, we've easily sunk that much in replacing the problems we currently have.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with a temporary solution for electronic locks that's app controlled on that particular building, but it won't be a permanent solution. I like what he's talking about in terms of looking at a further coalesced vision of all of the village restrooms. And I mean, we're going to have what now 4, I think, between the 2, maybe 3 that there'll be at Okie Park and then Mill Pond. It's that, you know, some sort of a unified solution, I think, is probably something that we need to maybe get on a CIP and just start looking at, you know, 2-3 years out, or even illustrative, you know, just this is where that needs to be. And it doesn't have to consume a ton of time in a conversation here. I agree with what's being listed there for the bucket truck stuff. That's already on our agenda a little bit later. The admin side of life, I think you are a bit high on the clean estimate and low on the door stuff, I think. Only because I think the cleaning part of it does allow for some slush,
Yeah,
depending on how much you want to do.
we'll have to create an RFP and
Yeah,
and get it
exactly.
sent out. So we won't know the exact number. These are just items that staff would like to do within this. As we've seen this building kind of fall into kind of issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
That have not been addressed. We're still missing some signs. There's going to be dings and nicks in the walls. We just want this place to look professional.
Is that something Angela puts together?
We as staff who will usually, an RFP like that level, at staff, we can handle that one.
Yes. Who was it? Market and Johnson that built this?
Yep.
Talk a little bit about the park impact fees and stuff that you had mentioned to me earlier, Devin.
Yeah, so we have to spend our impact fees by the end of the year. Impact fees are collected from any time there's new construction within the community. Currently, we have impact fees for parks was at 68,000 or 88.
Somewhere around 63, just to be about 63,000.
So those have to be used on new projects. They cannot be used on existing funds. So one of the things that we're looking to do on the impact fees is we're trying to figure out the best use for them before the end of the year. There's some ideas that we've been mulling around. How can we impact the skate park? Can they support potential of pickleball courts? New bathrooms were we kind of next right away because the cost of new bathrooms was too high. So Todd and I have been talking about the ability and how can we use the impact fees. And impact fees can be used for a new parking lot that we're talking about potentially by the skate park. So that's another avenue that they could be used for.
Yeah, certainly look forward to retouching on that next week. Of course, I haven't brought it forward to the board. The last DPW committee meeting brought a number of different proposals, including Okie Park equipment, playground equipment, the potential for new bathrooms if we could find a suitable quote at Okie Park. Also a parking lot that connects 4th to 6th. So we talked about a number of different things, but the Public Works Committee moved more directly in a positive way to the parking lot to connect 4th and 6th. So
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably the best use of park impact fees.
I think too.
Can we use the park impact fees for that lot in addition to potentially setting something up for a pickleball court? Or does that have to be CIP dollars?
The pickleball court would be suffice for impact fees. The question is going to be, what's the cost going to be for Avenue? I'm guessing that's going to be between 60 and 80,000 for 2 courts, because your remodel of Eric Park was 60.
No, that was actually, I believe, for new courts.
Oh, that was for new court? I thought that was for the sports court on top.
No,
Okay.
that large company hasn't come out yet until I procure dollars. No need for them to come out. So there's 2 potential things we could do here for, I think, roughly $50,000 is a quote I got from Tennis Doctor. Now, this doesn't include a 30 by 30 asphalt slab. So we could be potentially looking at about anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000 for that, on top of the $50,000 quote to put in 2 new courts, fencing, nets, everything else. Another potential idea is Eric Park has the infrastructure there, the fencing's there, the asphalt's not very good, but they do a sort of like a Rubbermaid overcourt or overlayment of the existing asphalt. So there's potential for that to be.
Yeah, so those are avenues we can use impact fees, but not being an agenda item tonight, we cannot discuss where those, or how we're going to use those funds. We can certainly let you aware of what the cost can be and what they can be used for.
Okay.
So that's definitely an avenue in the future we can look at.
All right. And then in terms of the bottom of the report where you've indicated that there might be some demolition there, CIP dollars available for that? Can we do that? Is that something that's allowed?
I think so, and given what we're showing as an overage, just from the recommendations that we made, there's still a remaining, I think,
$68,000 left even after all the recommendations. And so, I mean, I want to respect what Mike brought up as a point where I think that there might be some better spent dollars waiting down the line, but then we also have to spend these by a certain amount, by a certain time period. So can we roll these forward into the next CIP? We can.
Yeah, we can. We can roll this in the next CIP. We borrowed this money 3 years ago now, and we've accomplished every item that was on that list for the CIP. So these funds are remaining funds from the cost savings that we said, and we're giving them back to the departments where the cost savings were incurred.
Sure.
Like I said, we should always make sure that if we don't spend it all the summer, or if we want to roll it over, make sure that we have a little contingency for the Simmons Drive project,
Right.
as you never know when a change order or overruns might happen on a project. But overall, we can certainly use these dollars in conjunction with the impact fees to start some of the park projects that we were talking about.
Yeah, I see that as a no-brainer. I mean, just keeping these dollars available to make sure that we polish these things up correctly. Like if we need to do whatever we need to do to make sure that a $200,000 gift that's being given to the village is treated correctly when it's constructed, that's what we need to do. So whatever, you get the proper quote process going to make sure that demolition is quoted by the required number of people. And then, knowing that we have these dollars available to do that, I think that helps, because this is really us being prudent with the way that we budgeted for our CIP stuff, and we came in under budget. And so now we get to use these funds on things that will beautify the village. So.
And I think too, with the skate park coming in, I just want to voice support for using this to refresh the bathrooms that are near the skate park.
Yes.
Because I think that is an excellent use of excess resources, so that we don't have whatever
Agreed.
problems will come from a non-functioning or
Agreed.
unpleasant bathroom.
You could approve any project tonight that you want on this list. It doesn't have to be all of them, but if there's certain projects you would like to get going on, you could approve some of the projects tonight.
I want to make 2 comments here. You had commented that, the money was kind of reallocated to the group that shared it. I'd like to think that this is all one family. So just because Todd saved money, it doesn't mean some other department can't use it if that's the best idea. Having said that, then, like the whole bathroom thing, is what level of refreshes are we talking? And maybe if you move money out of one bucket, move it into another bucket, all of a sudden we get nice handy bathrooms and they look beautiful. And that's just a better spent on all of it. So if we do end up having discussions about approving anything on here, I'm going to struggle with biting anything off, except for maybe the voting machine. Because I think there'd be, I'm on board with a great bathroom over there. Let's not spend $2,000 painting it or whatever the number is. Maybe we spend more to make it better.
Yeah, what we're recommending is the $10,000, and like I mentioned, the potential for organization to donate an unknown number at this time,
Sure.
but with
I picked one. I'm just, and maybe the whole group gets prioritized as to what makes sense to move forward on.
Yeah,
I did get some initial quotes for some pre-stressed concrete buildings, because going in with these CIP dollars, I wanted to see how far we could take these CIP dollars and present to the Public Works Committee some ideas to
Is that
see
a
how,
block building?
that is a block building.
Yeah, at some point the block goes, it falls apart. And you can put paint on it, it still falls apart.
Yeah, no, I mean, just looking at what St. Croix Falls did with 3 new bathrooms, their third ad actually being added this year with their pre-stressed settings. I mean, you're talking on the low end of the spectrum, 90,000.
yeah, that's definitely CIP material for sure. You know, that's not just, hey, we have leftover money. We got to schedule that for sure.
I understand your point, Mike. However, if we can spend some of that money knowing that the 100th year of the fair is coming and that there's about to be people that have never been to our community ever before and their only intro to our community is in Oki Park, and we chose not to put a little money into upkeeping them, they won't understand why we made that
I'm on board
choice,
for
you know?
more porta potties and a sign saying, hey, we take some more donations for a new bathroom.
Well, I think on the bathroom point, it sounds to me like in the immediate term, as far as this discussion goes, there are not resources to develop a new bathroom in Oki Park.
In the future.
In the projectable future, that is not in our realm of reality.
Not the way the CIP is currently developed.
Yeah. Right. And so I think that we need to play the hand that's been dealt and recognize that if we have as you said, a $200,000 gift that's coming into the village that is going to be impacting Oki Park in a new way, with I think a lot more traffic in Oki Park, we need to make sure we have the basic services in place to have that be a success, and not create a situation where other weird, unfortunate things happen. And so I hear the point. I mean, you could spend a lot of money and get a really nice bathroom, and that would be slick. It doesn't sound like that's in the cards. And so I am just vocalizing that I'm strongly supportive of moving forward. I don't know, whatever that looks like in this meeting, I feel like we've kind of lost the ball, but wherever that project and that sort of focus can go, and the yellow house and things, I think that is a smart use of our stuff.
Maybe I've hyper-focused on one thing. I'm saying in general.
I agree with you, actually. I agree. No, I agree with Mike because, you know, it's about prioritizing stuff, right? We're talking about maybe a pickleball court. Well, what's the priority? A pickleball court with this skate park, or a nice bathroom like we have at Oki Park? And then set the space and money aside for pickleball court later, right? For the nice bathrooms, you're going to have the people at the ball game, the people at the fair, the people for future events using these bathrooms all the time. Pickleball court's going to be seasonal. So I know that we're looking at this as a big project, but pickleball court, bathrooms, everything else, not feasible. But I think between the fair and the board, this board, we have to decide what the priorities are. And if it's a nice bathroom first and foremost for, you know, year-round use, then we go down the road for pickleball court. You know, we can't do it all. I get that. But it doesn't make any sense to put 5, 6, 8,000 for a temporary remodel either of, you know, putting pig on a lipstick, so to speak.
Yeah, I want to drill into that $10,113.77. You said the water fountain's 5?
Yes, so
So that's a fancier one like we got out here, probably outdoor rated, fills a water bottle.
yes, so it's one, we have 2 that were donated. What we'd like to do, the water line was broken last year at the fair, so kids broke it off. So it's essentially non-functional. With this potential rehab, and $10,000 is of course a stretch, and I could certainly present something in just the way potentially of maybe new doors, a water fountain that attaches to the building.
That's where I was actually going to go, because if you got 5 for water fountains, you've got a couple for paint. The doors are $3 to $4 grand, I'm guessing, to replace those 2, because if out of anything I've noticed there that's bad, it's the doors.
Yeah.
So now you've got new water fountains, you've got 2 new doors, you've got a coat of paint. What have you really saved? You've bought some really nice lipstick and put on a pig.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
I feel like we're almost wasting money at that point. Not that it isn't a big deal. It's just I
completely understand. I also understand the current park comp plan, where that rating came in. I also understand from over the last decade that when you get a little bit of potential funding outside of your O&M to try to, like, to put lipstick on a pig.
Paul?
Do it.
I guess for, with the CIP money, what bothers me about it is the fact that we have a leaking roof up at the fire hall that I've tried to get a roof repair done. And now you're starting to talk about pickleball courts and all that. And I understand money, different monies, different ways, whatever, but I've been trying to get my roof done at the fire hall and there's been no money that's been put off for like 3 years on that. So I guess I'm just throwing in on the fact that
I've just changed my angle. I want Paul's roof.
Well, I think, so, but I would ask you though, we did a CIP strategy session earlier this year.
And that's in the,
And if that was a priority for you, why wasn't it first on the list for 24, 25?
I've been talking about it.
No, I mean, you had the choice. You had the choice to put that first on the list. Because the departments were all given their own budgets to determine what their own priorities were, right?
All of our stuff with our trucks that we need for
Mhm.
9 yards, everything went for us on your CIP plan. Everything went into, the getting.
Vehicles,
12, just getting grants, grant related.
sure,
It's all grant.
sure.
All grant related.
Which we're waiting on the results of.
Fire department gets put grant related stuff and.
Yeah,
what
there's
happens
unknowns
is
for
they
sure.
are our buildings.
Yeah, there's unknowns. So like if we don't get a certain specific grant for a vehicle that we're waiting on, all of a sudden the money that's been set aside for our share of that, now that can be reallocated and the first thing you should be putting it at is roof on the fire hall.
I think it has been on there for 3 years, though, and it has been promoted and talked about in the police and fire committee meetings.
Sure.
So to my point earlier.
And what gets approved doesn't come on, so it goes at the top of the list for the next year.
So to my point earlier,
Different
this
discussion
isn't,
than
this
you're
isn't,
saying, but it's
this is only money for this department or only money for that department.
Right.
If we've got extra money, let's look at all the departments and then maybe prioritize across the board where the money's best spent. And I'm gonna guess if it was Todd's roof and Paul said, you know what, Todd needs that roof because it's impacting some piece of equipment, Paul be on board. I'm vice versa, whatever.
Absolutely.
And maybe it's a bathroom, maybe it's a roof, maybe it's a new piece of lawn mowing equipment or something. It's,
I guess I just don't see spending money on pickleball courts when we have roofs that are leaking.
we're mixing up two things right now and nothing's on the agenda because we're talking about impact fees that have to be used on parks. So we're talking apples and oranges in that aspect. You cannot use impact fees for roofs for fire departments. So unfortunately, that's not something that can be used. There's different avenues of impact fees that can be used for community buildings. But we're not talking about impact fees right now as that relates to it. I cannot recall exactly what's on the 24 and 25 CIP off the top of my head without looking at that CIP document either. So there's many things that are getting off track here that are not on the agenda that we must stay on the agenda for.
I would love to learn more about what's approved, and then if we looked at the entire village, like maybe what are some big pictures of what could the CIPs be used for?
The CIP dollars can be used for anything the board deems proper. The biggest issue with CIP is you run into the fact that some projects are outside the scope of the CIP and the expense. If we're only borrowing $700,000 a year, it would not be smart to put a $800,000 bill into the CIP because that would decimate all of the projects within the CIP. If you want to do large projects like that, it's best that you form a referendum and work around that way.
For the sake of moving things on, I think that once we have more firm bids on some of the other stuff we talked about, we can maybe address that. But I would probably make a motion that we use at least $1,200 towards the voting machine, since we have a price on that, and that's something we all, sounds like we agree on that we need right now.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Ron and a second by Van to spend $1,200 on a voting booth using leftover 22-23 capital improvement plan funds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carried. Any additional discussion with regard to these funds?
Are we?
is our next steps.
Yeah,
for
I guess,
this.
are we asking, is it the consensus that we want them to come back? I'm hearing two things. Either come back with like a holistic overview of all of the things we could do with it, or come back with more concrete bids on the things that have been shown to us. So I don't know if that's a proper summary of kind of the two options, but that's kind of what I heard.
Personally, I feel like we're kind of in a situation now where we gave a kid $10 and he's standing in front of the candy aisle and he doesn't know what to buy. All right, we need to boil this down into a more pragmatic discussion. We've got some money left over, some of it's CIP, some of it's park impact fees.
There's what?
We need to make some
300,000?
decisions on how to spend them.
There's 300,000, right?
No.
No,
Sorry, what was the number?
It's
So much is-
$68,000.
Sorry.
And I feel like a lot of what is in this document is hard work done by the committees and the people on those committees that have
Right.
identified priorities. So I feel like we are opening a can of worms and kind of being dismissive to the departments that have decided these things are important to them. It feels like we're going through a second round of budgets and CIPs, and that is not what is meant to happen. Am I correct in saying that? Seems like we just created a giant agenda item and meeting when that was not a plan.
Right.
And is out of our normal financial scope of what we do and the schedule that we do it in.
like for instance, the administration one, we didn't use our $50,000 for that accounting program because we found ways to fix it internally without a new program. So we're looking to allocate that $50,000 elsewhere within the administration area.
Right.
That's where I don't think we're using our money wisely. We shouldn't just keep it to one budget. It's one community. It's not 5 departments working against each other.
I guess I'm just not sure that the size of the prize really, like, I don't get the sense that the amount of money at play is anything that's going to solve a major strategic problem for us. Like, I think to your point, Brad, it's maybe $5 in a high inflation environment in front of the candy machine. Like, we're talking about some kind of important dollars that we need to use wisely. But I guess as I looked at this, my reaction to it was the folks who figured out ways within their budgets to identify savings or efficiencies are in a position now to identify other things that maybe they were unable to get done that they would like to see a focus on. So I don't dispute the underlying logic of saying, okay, admin saved 50 grand. What else does admin need? I kind of understand that thinking.
Right, well, and like the building, I can walk out in the hallway, I can walk in the bathroom. I'm looking at these walls. I mean, the building's not that old. And how long are we gonna go now with our indecisions to just let this continue to deteriorate? I don't wanna go down that road.
Aside from the conversation regarding the voting machine, which has already been an action that's taken by the board, Devin, what additional action is recommended regarding this discussion?
It's a good question as of the conversation that just happened. Action this time is, do you want us to proceed with what we're doing, or do you want us to just kind of scrap this thing and start over again? I'm kind of got a mixed reading on the room of what people want to do with the money.
I think once we have hard estimates on some of these things that were given as whole dollar, general dollar amounts,
We can proceed to
then
get,
those things need to be voted on in the future once we have those estimates
we can
done.
proceed to see, especially when it comes to the demolition of the building. as
Exactly.
I currently have no one expressed more interest than my meetings with them to move the house.
Yeah.
So we need a full cost estimate for the demo of that building. And then the other stuff too, we would need full estimates for, which won't cost us anything, just time and energy.
Yeah, and I mean, at the risk of bringing the conversation into a larger scope, which involves capital improvement planning as well as parks planning, I think that like Neil had mentioned, this sort of got into the weeds and became a much more involved discussion than it needed to. I think the appropriate board action might be a motion to direct village staff to pursue this strategy as presented. And once we finally have final quotes on things, they're gonna hit our board agenda for us to vote on anyway. So, but we need to provide them with direction on where they want to go with seeking some of these quotes. And, you know, we can approve or deny those things as they become available for us to consider. But in terms of, you know, utilizing what is here, I think that the appropriate board action would be to direct the staff to employ this strategy as it's written. And if we want to change their direction, we can do that at a later time. But I'm totally fine. This is a very small amount of money compared to the millions that we borrow every other year for our CIP. So, you know, these are just, it's little fish.
Yeah, and some of the stuff, I don't think we'll have any idea of what the full value that we have until Simmons Drive is done to give them the cost of overruns. And the point of information, the fire hall is in the 2024-25 CIP.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna make the motion that we direct village staff to employ this strategy as written.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion by myself and a second by Van to employ this strategy as illustrated. Any discussion on this motion?
When is Simmons supposed to be done?
Before school starts.
Starting this summer.
We don't have a timeline yet on that.
So in theory, we could wrap this up by the September. And when do we have to use the money by?
The CIP dollars, we're under no timeline. It's the impact fees, the ones that we have to use by the end of the year.
So we still have a couple of months to.
But we don't want it to, like, here we've got a whole bunch of stuff. And next month, now we got a whole bunch of stuff, and then we add to the stack. I don't want to get there.
Of decision-making?
We have a motion on the table at the moment, a motion that's been seconded to direct staff to employ this strategy. So discussion should really be about whether or not you're in favor or opposed to this motion and why. Anybody have any other discussion that they'd like to talk about with the motion at the table? Okay, so then we'll go to a vote on the motion. So those in favor of the motion to direct staff to employ this strategy as presented indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. All right, we can move on to the next topic then. Okay, so 6B, Department of Public Works selling used equipment.
Lawnmowers first? Oh, I'm looking at your old one. I'm looking at my old one. Sorry about that.
I'm presenting the board tonight a list of items that are on the CIP equipment that is to be replaced under Public Works equipment. What I'm listing here is our existing equipment that we are looking to sell off to help procure the dollars to buy, to go on top of the CIP dollars requested to purchase the equipment. So I know that the procurement policy, while I sort of continue to wrap my head around that, did bring this pieces of equipment in front of the board to ask to get rid of these items and procure those dollars into our recovery and reimbursement accounts to help purchase the CIP items that match.
How confident do you feel that these estimates are going to be what you recover?
I tried to stay on the low end.
You've typically been conservative before, so.
I have been conservative. I think given with what I've asked for in the CIP and what you see in front of you, we'll be able to procure the items listed.
Were you selling through the state auction site or?
I think we might try a local auction site. I've tried the government surplus auction in the past. It's kind of tough. It's not local. Maybe a potential for like Vance and Hines or something like that. We've also had tremendous success last fall. I know this is I guess, sort of relatively new, at least new for me, last fall in 2023 when I began this process because whether getting next to nothing for trade-in and there's not much for government discounts, fleet vehicles, anything like that, we capitalized on selling numerous items that is as I requested last year, and we capitalized on that, and we came away looking, we came away ahead. So what I'm also noticing is that many of these equipment dealerships are just not taking this stuff. I think I don't know if they're overwhelmed and their lots full with new stuff, but they're not interested in these items.
I've noticed there's, interest rates on new stuff is pretty high. There's a lot of,
Mhm.
there's a lot of, product available on the market, so I can see why somebody doesn't want something used.
Yeah, it's been tough to deal with the dealerships when it comes to used items, as we'll see in my next report. But these smaller items, I don't think we'll have an issue selling privately, whether it be, I mean, we've used things such as Craigslist, and we'd like to try to potentially reach
Facebook
out to
Marketplace, yeah. Do we need to wrap this into a motion that would encompass both 6B and C? Because they're kind of related to each
You
other.
can have a motion that encompasses whatever needs to happen with those.
Yeah, I think the appropriate board motion might be something to the effect of, we would authorize you to recover whatever funds you can from selling this equipment such that you can afford to buy the used truck you want to buy. I mean, that's really what you're trying to do anyway, right? So we don't really care how much the new truck costs or how much you get from the old equipment, so long as you can make them both work.
Correct.
Yeah.
I motion to approve both 6A and B.
I'll second.
Would you mean maybe 6B and C?
Oh, I thought you said, sorry, B and C. I motion to approve both 6B and C.
And A.
It's all the.
Right? Yeah.
He wants to sell equipment.
Right.
He wants to buy lawnmowers and a truck. It's all public.
All right,
And your preferred vendor on that recommendation is with Boyd's because you're getting trade-in value on.
We're getting trade-in value. There's,
Did Midwest quote? Did you ask them?
we did not go after John Deere this year. We went after Gravely and Toro this year.
Oh, B, C, and D.
Gravely and Toro.
Gravely and Toro.
Toro
C
mowers.
and D.
I'm gonna second Marcia's motion. So we have a motion by Marcia and a second by myself.
To clarify, I heard it was B, C, and D,
To,
correct?
yeah, B, C, and D. For the selling of equipment,
Just-
capital purchase of zero-turn mowers, and the bucket truck.
Are we in discussion? That was a question.
You can rise in favor or against the motion that is currently on the table to approve those three things, yes.
I don't remember the purchasing levels and the different, what value you're supposed to execute it at.
Yes.
We're probably up there enough. Did we go after 3 quotes even though you were looking at 2 vendors? Was it 3? Is that what's required for this?
I think it depends.
The availability of specialized equipment sometimes will have an issue with that.
Sure.
That was written in that agreement.
And I agree with you,
Yeah.
but I know you wanted a couple of particular brands, but
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with, there's Bad Boy, there's Bobcat, there's John Deere, there's Toro, there's Gravely, there's a bunch of them.
Yep.
Sure, they're specialized, but is it that sophisticated and did we really, I'm gonna guess they're close. I'm just questioning it, did we really follow the purchase or the ordinance we just wrote?
And as I mentioned, as I'm kind of working through the procurement policy and getting adapted to it, was the main reason I brought these small ticket items.
Yeah, because usually the small ticket items on the new one wouldn't have to come to board.
But now if we're going to talk about, yes, the mowers, the bucket truck, I cannot sell the lift or do anything until I potentially procure that
Yeah.
the 50,000 additional dollars. So that will sit the way it is for right now. But in regards to the mowers, those were the 2 that we choose because they were both local dealerships. We have done business with them in the past. We do have parts on the shelf. Of course, we take
These
price.
are great choices. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
And I know it's a new requirement, so there's probably some learning curve in it. I'm gonna vote in favor and I'm just questioning that if we move forward, we're just cautious of that.
Yeah, and as we get accustomed to the new thing too, there's gonna be some changes too that will happen in July.
Learning curves.
Mhm.
I'm gonna guess somebody from Midwest Power is gonna squawk because we didn't ask them, but whatever.
I think there's potential.
John Deere's are not cheap to operate long-term, so there's probably a good reason to stay away from them too. I own
think-
one, it gets expensive.
Do we need to pull back the motion? Or are we?
On the premise that we're operating within the confines of our procurement policy, I think this motion is still valid. If you discover that we're not operating within the confines of our procurement policy, then don't make the procurement and bring it to the July meeting for
Okay.
reconsideration. But in terms of on the premise that we're operating within the bounds of our newly created procurement policy, this motion should still stand and be voted on. Because action can be taken. If you find that you are operating within the bounds of the policy, then you can make those purchases and sell those items and we're fine. But if you can't find language that supports what you've already done, pull it back and come back to us in July. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carries. 6E. Ordinance 2404 to amend chapter 201 utility and create an Article 5 conservation measures.
This one's all Rick. He's gonna talk about this one.
It's a fun one. We don't currently have a written provision or policy within our code that would allow us to restrict water usage in the case of an emergency, such as you would lose your well during a drought season. We feel like we would ask people to maybe not water in that situation. And to be clear, this has never happened. I don't expect it to happen. I hope it never happens. Not something that I want to navigate, but we wrote this just in case, so we have it on file, because then it becomes enforceable through Wisconsin State Code also. So this is the intention of the ordinance. I don't see us using it. I hope we don't in the immediate future, but it is there if we need it. So
Proposing to pass this during a month where we've had 5 inches of rain.
right, anything can happen.
It's a
I
good
mean,
time to do it.
this is- that's right.
Feel good.
It was one of those things that's been on my mind to get done. So we did it. There you are.
Make a motion, we pass this resolution.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Mike and a second by Van to pass this resolution. Any discussion?
I guess the only discussion I have is what, other than this resolution, are there other city models you can look at for this, for enforcement purposes and?
I did for
like
the
a
ordinance itself.
letter, and I mean, we have a whole procedure in place that we can do
There's-
for enforcement when it
No,
comes?
there's no procedure in place right now.
But I mean,
It's-
you have looked at other cities.
Yeah, to write this, I did.
Yeah, to write this, so
Yep,
we'll have
yep.
something in place for enforcement if needed.
If needed, yeah, and I mean, ultimately, it references our own code for enforcement for penalty. And
Perfect,
so if we need to cross that bridge, we'll do it.
perfect, that's all I had.
Is the penalty just a fine?
It is a fine, yeah.
Fee schedule.
It's severe and they take your water out.
Yeah.
Well, there's a provision, when I say it becomes enforceable through Wisconsin State Code, the Wisconsin State Code with PSC would actually back us to disconnect the water or threaten disconnection at that point. So
Nice.
Yeah.
you have 2 avenues there to take too.
Like,
Hopefully it never has to come to that, just to be
No.
clear, but there if you need it.
Just like the airport hangars.
Right.
Some don't comply.
That's right. Yeah. So you had something on the books at that point.
There you go.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carries. All right, stay at the podium because you're next.
Stand right here.
6F, Resolution 2408, Bluff Tower Water Main Replacement.
All right, as we move forward with engineering that Bluff Tower water main, we are accruing soft costs. We are applying to a clean water, safe drinking water loan, which is a subsidized loan. Current rate, I believe, is 1.28%, so pretty good. Right now, we financed the engineering portion of that through the borrowing we just did. So this would make that refinanceable in theory through that subsidized loan process, and any other costs we may accrue, soft costs along the way, such as soil boring and testing and things like that. So we could, at a future date, pay a lower interest rate for the project, for all of the related costs for the projects moving forward.
It's basically a cheaper way for us to achieve what we're already planning on doing.
Yep.
Is that how I read that?
And
Yep.
if it's
Okay,
the
great.
covering our, dotting our i's and crossing our t's to make sure that we can do that in the
Right.
future if we need to or want to.
Okay.
I'll make it.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to,
It's on the table already. Do you want a second?
oh, shit, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
faster.
Oh, you don't have a mic. I'll second it.
I am.
We have a motion by Mike and a second by Van to adopt
one.
Resolution 2408. Any discussion on the motion to adopt? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carries. 6G, Simmon Drive expense breakdown.
Yeah, last month you guys wanted a breakdown of cost for Simmon Drive. That is the memo from Jason Rabbit you have in front of you. I want to point out one thing at the end. There's the graph that shows the total cost local split. Jason was not taking into the account of the amount that we pass as a village of accepting from the town of Osceola. Keep in mind, we added a few extras that raised that amount. So we as a village are paying the extra amount that we wanted to for the add-ons for that road.
That was striping, thicker asphalt,
and wider-
and 12-foot drive
yep.
lanes.
Yeah, so those are the items. So we're still holding the town to the $64,427.86 that we agreed upon. So that number that's showing here would be if we continue down the path of the percentage that we agreed to prior to that agreement. I just want to make sure that's clear that we're not asking more from the town than what we already accepted.
Right.
And the reason the cost is higher is because of the add-ons that we as a village wanted.
And we've also padded in a 10% contingency.
Yes.
Okay. This looks good. Do we need motion? Do we need, we don't need any action on this,
No
right?
action on it.
Just
This was
info?
information only. This is something that was requested last month and we wanted to provide.
When does it start?
No start date yet. We will provide that once we receive that.
As soon as you get it.
They want to make sure that all the buses are done moving before they start their construction. So we're looking at sometime of end of July, August for.
Got it. Yeah, summer school. Yeah, okay. So it's gonna be August. Okay. Great. All right, 6H, HPC application for certificate of appropriateness, 103 Chieftain Street.
Let me get that up here. I gotta remember which one this one was. Oh, the demo of the house. This is the demo of the house behind Osceola Lanes there. There's no historical significance to that house. There's no historical value to it. The HPC voted unanimously to allow the certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the house. And he came in today for it to get his building permit for the raise.
Very simple.
Are we making motions on each one of these?
We can do a blanket one, or you can just do one.
This isn't the obstruction permit stuff. This is something different.
This item I mean is, because there's another one similar to it right after, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the certificate of appropriateness for 103 Chieftain Street.
Okay, we have a motion by Van and a second by Mike to approve the COA. I'm sorry, COA for 103 Chieftain. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carries. 6I, HPC COA for 210 North Cascade.
Jay Nelson is at 210 Cascade, is looking to paint the exterior of his building. As you can see, those are the color palettes that he's going to paint it. Once again, this was passed unanimously by the HPC.
Where is this? Where is this house?
It's right downtown.
It's not a house. It's a business, a commercial property.
Got it. Now I know where that is.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's just an image to show what the colors look like together.
Really, it's a cream. It's not like a green looking color.
Yeah.
It's just
Yep.
copies that way.
It's
It's
just-
like a tan creamish color.
Sauteed mushroom to me.
Sauteed mushroom. Yes, it does say sauteed mushroom.
I'll reiterate my.
Yeah, we have a motion from Mike. Is there a second?
I will second.
All right, we have a motion by Mike and a second by Arvid to approve the COA for 210 North Cascade. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carries. 6J, Veterans Memorial MOU.
Yeah, that was the that attachment was sent yesterday. We were waiting for an MOU from Irrigation. He sent us that letter. I crafted the MOU. That was everything that we talked about in our early May meeting with the Veterans Memorial Group. So in front of you would be the MOU for the irrigation system of the memorial.
It was really a generous contribution.
That was the only way it was gonna happen. Really?
It was really decent
Mhm.
for him to do that.
I assume there's a typo in the last sentence. repair or replace and damages heads, something's not.
No, the heads of the sprinklers,
What's that?
the heads of the sprinklers.
When they're
I
damaged.
understand, but
I think it's supposed to say damaged heads, not damages heads.
Oh,
You didn't bring that up with the letter writer.
sorry about that. We'll get that
You didn't
edited.
write that letter.
Oh, the letter. Oh,
Yeah.
not my document.
No.
Oh, okay.
I guess I'm glad he's good at sprinklers and not typing.
So, but in the document, yeah.
That was a Neil catch, Arvid. That was great.
Well, and I'm kicking myself because I had another one, but I couldn't remember.
Let's not get into the weeds on this.
Yeah, quite literally. Yeah, I will move to adopt this MOU.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by myself and a second by Mike Van to adopt this MOU.
Isn't that something?
Any discussion on the motion to adopt?
Can't hear you.
All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed say no. Motion carries. 6K, Oki Park and Skate Park discussion.
In front of you, you have a license agreement to allow,
Primary concrete.
Primary Concrete, thank you, to have residents at the property at 405 4th Avenue. Anything you want to add to that one, Marcia?
We have, like Brad said, a $200,000 gift of a skate park coming. And that cost is actually $170,000. And we are doing everything we can to find in-kind donations to better support Primary Concrete, making sure that this is somewhat worthwhile for them. So the idea came up to use the yellow house as short-term residency for the crew prior to its demolition. So all of the readiness of the house would be the Osceola Skate Park Committee's duties. Everything from appliances to removal of appliances to monitoring the property is all in this license agreement. And any discussion on this, I'm assuming there will be some, so.
And what's the total cost of this, like to the village for this?
We will never know the upfront cost in terms of what the water and sewer and all that's going to be or electrical until they use it.
But appliances, right?
Well, that part's, they're finding their own,
There's no appliance cost to
none
that.
at all.
Not buying appliances.
Utilities is
As
the only
I-
thing.
The cost is
As I
utilities.
said, that is all on the Osceola Skate Park Committee to donate and procure all of that. Basically the donation is the use of a house that has been intended to be torn down for years. And as is pretty standard, Primary Concrete has never been charged for electrical and water for a municipal skate park build. However, if the committee or if the board decides that that is not something that they want to donate, peak water usage on a skate park construction day could be 150 to 200 gallons of water. Electrical usage could be $150 for the course of the project. Water cost could be $250 to $400 is what Primary Concrete has
And to be,
suggested.
I wasn't concerned about the cost of building. It was the housing maintenance, the housing utilities I was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I did some napkin math. I asked Rick, I asked Todd. $500 maybe in utility cost between electric, water and sewer. Like it's nothing.
I got a comment and a question. So yeah, I'd agree. In construction, normally if you're building on site with somebody, you don't get charged.
Right.
Unless it's really egregious scope or something.
Right.
You might see somebody bill for electrical usage or something. For a
Yep.
long period. So I don't know that that's the issue. I'm curious is like, is there power on the building now?
Yes.
Okay, so there isn't a new service hookup.
Water's still hooked up, electrical still hooked up.
So it's just consumption for the month.
That's what I was saying.
5-6 weeks.
I
yeah.
was never planning for the building and for the construction of it, charging for that. That was just one thing that was not covered in this lease. And we wanted to
Yeah.
make sure we addressed it, that would be something that we cannot, the utilities still have to bill for it. They have to bill it. So the city would have to pay the water and sewer for that.
So this is literally, we're just discussing the lease of the use of the building itself for their
Yeah.
I do like the, I caught the insurance line in there and the additionally insured and stuff. It would just be good to follow through with their policy to make sure that they're covered for them occupying the space too. That's not something I'd ever seen in a construction document.
The question is also, this house is part of Oki Park, and we have already a license agreement with Primary Concrete for anything within Oki Park. So
Just to be very poignant, I've never been on a construction site where somebody says, I want to live there during construction. And I'd be curious if my broker would
Yeah,
not call me
it's a
back
pretty
and
rare
say,
situation.
wait, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's a pretty rare
And
situation.
how do you insure for that?
how do we ensure for people living on site during the fair and running that?
That's a unique entity. I'm gonna guess the carnival business has that covered in theirs. I'm speaking on behalf of construction. It's unique. I'm just saying, I'm on board with it. Just make sure that I'd hate to have them overlook it, find out it's not a good policy. It doesn't cover something like this. And even though we're listed as additionally insured, we're only additionally insured for construction, not for occupancy.
Well, that's what this document will do.
I get it. I'm asking about follow-up and making sure whatever they do is actually legitimate and it doesn't get swept under the board.
Right.
And what's the chances of something happening in 6 months
Don't say
or
that.
6 weeks? Sorry.
Don't say that.
Again, all the more reason to ask the question.
I think if there's enough board that is not interested in this, I don't want anything to do with the Yellow House to be associated with the skate park as some sort of roadblock. Because
I feel like you're
in
not
general,
hearing what I'm saying. I'm on board with it. I'm just saying, let's follow through to make
Sure,
sure we're
sure.
covered.
I get that. And so what is needed next? Do you want to physically see their insurance policy at the next board meeting?
We don't, the board doesn't review any other insurance policy, does it?
We would just get a copy.
Yeah. It's just something unique to look for. Yeah, I'll make a motion, we pass it.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike and a second by Arvid to pass this license agreement?
Yep.
That's what it's called? Okay. Any discussion on passing this license agreement? Seeing none, we'll vote. Those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carries. Okay, moving on. 7, future agenda items and updates. Oh, we got amended agenda.
Nope, we didn't talk about the old house at all.
Yeah, and the Yellow House too.
Demolition of it.
You're right. So we just finished the license agreement. Now we have to talk about the house. So,
Yeah, so
yeah, you're right. I
this
didn't,
was kind of a coverall blanket.
it is,
I
yeah,
didn't know where
to
this
talk about
conversation.
both. Yep.
I didn't know where this conversation was going to go regarding
Oh,
the
it fits here. So,
building of the skate park. So we had a catch-all of what to happen with the site. One thing, before the completion of the skate park and before it's open, we want to make sure that the house is demoed. Part of in that CIP document you had, we listed in an estimated cost of what it might be. Keep in mind that was the estimate that it would cost if the house itself was taken out off-site. So that was for filling in the basement and doing all that.
right.
So then where this conversation then will lead is what's the village going to, how they're going to proceed with the demo of the Yellow House.
Well, I mean, at this point, we have zero legitimate interest in moving it. It's painfully obvious that anybody that thought that they were interested in moving it didn't have the means or reasonable finances to do so. If you don't have property within a mile of here, you're not moving that house. It's just too expensive.
That
to
was the
move it.
roadblock everyone came
Right,
across.
yeah. So that being said, we are at a point where we have to choose as a village how we're going to responsibly accept a $200,000 gift from the skate park organization. And that's done by wiping the slate clean.
Didn't Primary offer to tear it down at one point too? Did they entertain that?
If we need to open it up to bids, which I think is what the conversation
That's
should
what the
be.
direction would be tonight,
That
to
was
open
my-
it for bids.
My
Yeah.
recommendation would be is to allow us to go out for bids for the demo of the Yellow House.
Could we let them tear it down and let that be part of their project? And then how they execute it isn't, it's
Well,
up
the
to them.
cost has got to be paid somehow.
Yeah,
It's not part of the
the yellow,
not part of the project.
No,
No,
demoing
absolutely
the
not,
yellow house
no.
was not part of their
The
agreed
yellow house
upon.
can stay. It'll just be a red button to be spray painted
Yeah,
immediately.
I heard two different things. One, it needs to be cleaned up and it needs a clear slate. Then I just heard that it's not part of the project.
That's correct.
It is not
Primary
part of the
concrete is
scope of
not-
Osceola
Okay.
Skate Park's
It-
construction,
Never part of their plan to get rid of that property.
Could it be though?
I think that
but
at
not
this
part of
point-
their $170,000
Like,
cost.
I think at this point, the reality is a skate park is going in. That skate park has the funding to build the skate park. The yellow house has been an ugly appendage that is ancillary to, but not directly connected to the skate park project itself. The village owns that house, and we've tried to have someone come and take it. No one will come and take it. And so I agree with the way you kind of opened it, Brad. It's up to us to figure out what we're going to do with the thing. And whether Primary Concrete is the one that does the work through a bid process or
Yep.
someone else does it, the bottom line is we got to pay to remove a yellow house.
Got to bid it out. Yep.
And I look at the CIP money that we were talking about earlier. It appears that there are resources, thank God, available, in my view, to help with this. And I think bidding it out is just, we just got to bite the bullet and do it.
It's gonna be over $25,000, so we would have to do bids.
For sure. And if Primary wants to bid
Bid
it
it out,
to
yeah,
be
sure.
paid for that, fine, they
How
can
much-
do it.
How much contingency is there in the skate park so far? You've raised more money than you need, right?
Correct, yep.
If I understand things correctly, Primary has agreed to complete whatever is necessary to complete the park for $170,000.
They are constructing Osceola Skate Park for $170,000.
So it doesn't matter what they put into it for fixed costs. They're going to
They're-
build a skate park organization
They
$170,000
are
when
going
it's all
to
done.
build us a roughly 5,300 square foot skate park that should cost $200,000 for the reduced cost of $170,000. So if they wanted to, like you said, bid out the removal of the yellow house, they could, but that is an entirely separate construction project
Yep.
from
Well,
Osceola
I-
Skate Park.
I've seen this done before where the scope of the project could change to include the demo of the house and the project value just changes and then it saves a whole lot of hassle of the bidding process.
And the
No.
funds for paying for that removal of the house is coming from the village?
Well, back to my question was, your fundraising has reached more than the 170? Okay. And there's the 15 that we've offered to give up, the village is putting towards it, right?
That has not been voted on yet by this current board. There's a old document with a pledge of $15,000,
That was
which-
then pulled back.
which was then pulled back because the project was stale. And we have discussed over the last 3 years how that $15,000 would look for Osceola Skate Park. As I don't want to say a pessimist, I have never planned to see a dollar of that $15,000. Thus, we have fundraised like it doesn't exist. The yellow house is not skate park construction, but could that be the donation of the village to realize Osceola Skate Park fully, to have the house removed as the donation of $15,000 by the village? If there's remaining funds, does that come from the CIP? Is there funds then asked of Osceola Skate Park Committee to donate additional funds to help with the construction? That's kind of where I see the options and the discussion that needs to happen. If Osceola Skate Park is on the hook for some sort of cost associated with the yellow house removal, we need to know that and plan for that. Like you said, we have raised over the cost of the skate park, but we still have landscaping. We don't just want to drop a skate park and have a dirt patch around this skate park. We want to have landscaping. We want to help replant new trees that we are taking down. We want proper signage and we want funding to help gift Osceola Village with maintenance funds. Yeah.
Long-term maintenance, and I think that's where your extra fundraising
Right,
needs
so
to be
I
set
really don't
aside.
want to bleed our bank account to zero. I think that'd be very silly, so.
And I just feel like if it is gonna be the village funds, we should bid it out.
Well, we have,
For sure.
Yeah.
yeah, we
So
have,
I'm just saying that has to be.
And you shouldn't have to give up any of your extra funds.
Yeah, and I would
At all.
be totally fine with primary coming forward, and say, yeah, we're gonna bid to do it for 25 grand, and if they're the lowest one, then great, then the village can write primary concrete a check for $25,000 and it's done. And then they could literally coordinate everything all themselves. But if somebody comes in under them, if JNS says, yeah, we'll do it for 23, okay, you can coordinate your stay in the house with JNS, you're gonna have to leave 2 days before the thing's over.
Right, and I'd
So-
say that is important, is that the bid should go to whoever is able to do it in the timeline that makes sense. We wouldn't want
Right.
construction closing the skate park after it has opened.
Yeah,
So the timing of that would be important to have that work together.
which is where I think primary is probably gonna have a leg up on it if they wanna bid. Because they're gonna know their own timeline.
Yeah, it's not their area of expertise. They build skate parks, but I'm
Yeah.
sure they could figure it out if they wanted to do that scope of work.
Yeah.
I think the feeling it needs to be done before the.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tight timeline too because of the people
I still
staying
feel
in the
like it's
house.
Part of the project. That's where I was,
Yeah.
that's where my question is.
Agreed. Yeah, I do.
So if
I
it's
feel.
part of the project, then it should be part of the project. Part of the building of it.
I'd say worst case scenario is that Yellow House stays there and the skate park is open. So I don't see it as a necessary tied one whole project. The Yellow House is not Osceola Skate Park and it can stay there and kids can smash out the windows because that's what will happen. So I think it is in the village's best interest to remove it in conjunction with the opening of the park.
Maybe we should question having a skate park.
We should question having
Are
bathrooms
you
then.
suggesting the people coming there? Yeah. Okay.
I think there's a skate park that's going to be 8 feet from the back of a house that is vacant. So I think it is in the best interest of anyone to remove it in a timely fashion. If we are questioning vandalism, we should take down the bridge and we should take down buildings and we
Well,
should take down
And,
bathrooms.
and to mention the possibility of that parking lot we've been talking about would go right where the yellow house is.
I assume the skate park will have hours and be well lit.
It'd be just like all parks.
It
that-
is not lit at night, no.
It's gonna be like all parks close at dusk.
I think
We've got
I
some
think we're
gaps in this
kind of
project.
getting around, I don't think there are gaps, and I think that we're getting wrapped around the axle on some stuff that's not entirely relevant here.
I agree.
The yellow house needs to be removed. The skate park is coming at this point, and whatever comes with it, we're gonna have to manage our way through that when it gets here. But I have no doubt that we have the capacity to take what the community has built, integrate it into our parks, and make sure that we are prepared to receive it when it opens. And I think that the path forward is to go and look for bids to demolish the yellow house and take it one day at a time.
Agreed.
And accept the gift that's coming. So do we need a motion to?
Yes,
Please give us a motion to direct this
I'll
to demo.
move that we go out for bids to demolish the yellow house.
seconded. Motion by Neil and a second by myself to direct village staff to seek bids for removal of the yellow house. Any discussion on that direction? Those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Hey,
Carried. Anything else with regard to the Oki Park discussion, skate park?
I think we've covered it.
I actually have to head out right now. I anticipate this lasts this long.
We're at the end of our agenda,
I'm not
so,
opposed to any of the stuff we're gonna talk about. I looked at the sign, so I'm good. So,
okay.
all right, thank you.
And we can have votes with an abstention, Carrie, so. So I think we'll move on then to the last two items that were pulled out of the consent and move to the end of the agenda. I think we were looking at the conditional obstruction or the obstruction permits, right?
Yep.
So from what I understand, and the reason that I requested that these be pulled is I want to make sure that we take time to recognize